What's up?
Fishies!
It feels crazy we're reading Dressrosa. Like, you get used to a read through being like, oh, this is an early One Piece read through. And when you start reading, reaching modern material, by modern, I mean 10 years ago. But
Hey now, I'm an all-star. Get your game on. Let's play.
Can I start this off by doing the apology I was going to do?
Apologize.
Yeah. So last time a video just went up where I said the One Piece community is bad and rude and full of toxic power scalers. And I think there are segments, especially on Twitter, where that's true, especially on Twitter and One Piece power scaling Reddit. There are segments where that's true, but I've actually really enjoyed the One Piece community myself. My experience has been largely positive, and I've kind of just internalized the idea that the One Piece community is bad because when I've talked to people who aren't Dressrosa fans about what I'm doing, they've talked about how toxic the One Piece community is and how they wouldn't really want to be part of this Discord because the One Piece community is so toxic. So I've kind of internalized the idea that the community is bad, even though my experience has been largely very positive. I think most of the YouTube channels are very positive. I think the One Piece subreddit, I don't know any subreddit that large that actually feels that good. So I think the One Piece community overall is pretty good, and I shouldn't take full credit for how good our community is. Like, obviously, you attract a certain vibe of people, but there are a lot of people out there who are really great. And I don't know, I internalized a lot of the toxicity that I have to defend our community against and kind of assumed it to be true in a way that goes against my own experiences. So I just wanted to apologize for that because I genuinely think the parts of the community that I've been involved in have always been pretty good. And yeah, there's a huge age range, there's a huge range. There are parts of the community that are toxic, and that's why there's the stereotype.
That was so lovely.
Can I just say that I'm so thrilled about this episode?
Oh, I am too.
Oh, we haven't talked as much as we sometimes do, but the things we have talked about, we have found thematic depth in this that I am ecstatic about.
So that's why I'm excited to be caught up. Hey, no, I'm happy. I'm happy where I'm at. I love being in my little world, but I'm excited to be caught up because our conversations are going to get to have so much depth where you're not worried about ruining shit for me. I think that would be fun. And you're like, oh, that reminds me of something in your head, but I can't say that. And I can always tell when you're holding back. And then I'm like, oh, I wonder what's in there. And then I'm reading into all the shit you said.
Do you want to get into it now that I've given a long preface?
No, I have to do my thing, which is the opposite of an apology.
Okay. Is that a call out or what?
Yeah, it is. Today we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to not talk over each other, guys. We're going to talk not over each other.
Next one's ending on...
You just failed. We're trying not to talk over each other.
Oh my God, you're right. Okay, I'm quiet now.
We're gonna seriously try not to talk over each other. That's the first one. The next one is that Drock was gonna start off with his apology. It was a beautiful apology, Drock. High five to you.
Hooray, thank you.
And I'm gonna start with my call out. Once upon a time, there were people, and people are all different sizes and shapes, and they can be anything they want. And I think that all women can be anything. Love a tall queen with big boobs, no hips, big thighs. Don't give a crap. Don't give a crap what women looks like. Stop coming into the comments and telling me about how wrong I am about Oda giving big boobs to Nami and Robin because he keeps talking about the fact that he is a pervert. He does in the SBSs, and so do all the people. And stop coming at me and telling me that I don't like women and think that they should all be 5 feet tall and 300 pounds without any boobs. That's absolutely ridiculous. I think women can be anything at all. Trying to make excuses for Oda drawing everyone's tits bigger after the time change is just insane. Nami was done growing, y'all. She worked for Arlon. She traveled all over the world. She had good food. She ate well. Her tits were the size they were going to be. Also, his wife, saying that he designed it after his wife, he designed Nami before he even met his wife. So bite me on that one. He intended to make their boobs better because he likes drawing big tits. The end. Don't make any more excuses. Just own your shit.
He's just like, oh, did they get bigger? Ha 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 ha. Like my man's Oda would make up an excuse if he wanted to. He's just drawn bigger tits. Like,
exactly.
It's fine.
Who cares, man?
And you like it, so does he.
Robin
it's okay.
Robin was older, and you ask, we're going to not talk over each other, guys. We're going to talk not over each other. You shove them full of silicone. So the reason that their tits are bigger is because Oda likes big tits, period.
Yeah,
or you making excuses. And quit coming at me and saying I'm not a feminist because I think every woman has to look the same. Bite me again, back up and bite me.
I am not judging anyone for drawing sexy ladies, but like to say that Oda's proportions aren't insane and overly consistent is kind of ridiculous. I don't like it. I love One Piece. It's a complaint I have. It's a complaint Mama Drock has. It's a complaint a lot of people have. You know, One Piece is what it is.
I'm not ragey about it, but I just felt like when people are making excuses for things, like, dude, Oda made a choice. Just let him make a choice and let him own his crap. You don't have to treat him like he's a flawless godlike being. Just allow him to be a person who wanted to draw bigger boobs on people. It is what it is. And now let's talk about this drawing. So here's the thing. I have to choose the drawing, and Drak is always like, okay, that sounds good. What do you think you'd like to see? And da da da. And then oftentimes what happens is Drak and I then have a little conversation, and I give him like my top 3 things. Sometimes, like with the Sabaody one, I'll be like, I have an idea in my head. I don't know what this looks like in execution. And this time I was like, look, I'm gonna be honest with you. I think the best image for me might have been when Bardo was pissing off the side of the stadium's platform. Rock, as soon as I said that, was like, yes, done.
Yeah, we got that. We got that, homie.
What are you doing?
I'm keeping track. I'm keeping a tally. It's Bellamy the dog. We're adding the good boy. That's why I've changed the spelling.
Did we talk about how much Rebecca's nipples must be ripping off in her outfit?
You see what I mean when I say there's a character whose design makes your nipples hurt?
Oh my God, I'm so uncomfortable with it. I just want to give her like a silk under thing, you know? Because I'm like, holy shit. That woman is running around. You want to know why she's tough? Her nipples are being ripped off of her body all day, every day.
Yeah,
and then
this
healing.
Handle infinite pain.
This woman is just nothing but a calloused tit. That's what's going on.
That's a horrible sentence you just said. Yeah, and also she's 16, which sucks.
I don't know what to tell you. Look, I play guitar. I have calluses on my left hand. It just is what it is because I play guitar and the strings make you have calluses and they damage you and they break you open and then they heal and they callus. So there is no way in shit if she is just wearing a metal plate bra.
It's not a metal plate.
Isn't
a metal plate. Metal plate would be the slave Leia, which someone said she's doing.
Sorry.
Which would be so much better. It's
chainmail. Chainmail.
That's horrific.
That's
I love Rebecca's character. Her design is awful.
She's only 16.
You interpreted her Coliseum outfit as what she's forced to wear, but Luffy got to pick his armor as long as it was in the weight category. She could have just put on like a shirt first. Maybe they don't give her that privilege.
I like to think of it as a fleece back. Ooh, nice and soft. Yeah, I've decided.
Maybe they don't let her, but also, Jesus Christ, she is a slave gladiator. That's true, but it's awful. It's bad.
And she's a baby.
And she's a baby.
She's a baby. She's just a baby. Drak, where do I find the delete your art? I did it.
Gone is cardboard. We're now making this a dramatic, intense angle anime shot. The PP stream is going to be involved no matter what. That was already going to happen. But we're not doing the front. But we are doing a dramatic angle because I like torturing myself with difficulty at the last minute.
I know you do. I'm very proud of you for this. Oh my God, is that a piss stream?
No.
Because I was going to say that dude needs to go to the doctor. Let's get to the part of the show where we talk about the thing that we're here to talk about. What do you think? Okay, here we go. Ready? I love that we start this off with Luffy trying to make Momo go for a ride as a dragon and fly. And Momo's face being so like, get the hell off of me, asshole, and the two of them having fight was really kind of a really strong Luffy moment where he was like, yeah, don't forget I'm Luffying this up and behaving like an absolute butthead. But what we noticed right away is when you're coming into the city, the first image in the beginning is whatever. So we're going to go to the next one when we get there. We both agreed. We just love the introduction that we have to our blind judgment.
I feel like this is our first actually good admiral.
Yeah, this is an admiral that doesn't make me immediately want to punch him in the face. And even though I don't agree with the way that he is and I don't agree with what he does, I do think that he does have a form of blind justice and that he's actually trying to be there for the justice. Whereas with a lot of them, I feel like they're not actually there for the right reasons. I feel like he actually is blind justice. Love that he can create a hole right down into hell. Stunning. I can't. I tried. It didn't work. And then as we're going in here, the reason this is important is when we get into chapter 702, right away, we see the person that I hate that apparently so does Murphy.
Yeah.
She also hates the wet caribou pile of shit.
The biggest difference you guys have in opinions is that Murph loves Buggy and all of his failing upward bits.
Yeah, it's fine. She's allowed to love.
I don't like Caribou as a person, but I actually do think his bits are funny. I think him being just a little shit slime ball is funny.
Why?
I don't know. This is kind of funny.
He ruins it for me with his face and his ways and his sucking. Hate him so much. So then when we go in here, he immediately starts to make a comparison between different leaderships. So in 702, we're hanging out, and the front thing says, Caribou's New World, proletariats, grab your weapons. Captain Cabrera, child of the revolution, has returned. And obviously, 450,000%, this is Che Guevara.
Yeah, that's a reference for sure.
100%. So the fact that he is doing Che Guevara is really, really interesting, because I was telling you before that I thought that he was showing different kinds of leadership, because Che Guevara is a Cuban revolutionary, but he was also all over the world. Like, he worked with people like Fidel Castro, but he worked with other guerrilla forces, and he moved around to Cuba, and he was in a bunch of different areas, and he was kind of like a for hire, but for hire in the way that he was putting himself out in the world because he believed that places like the United States, who had all this Republican kind of feeling, were never going to listen to kind of a leftist perspective, which is absolutely interesting, because it reminds me of what we talked about when we talked about you only don't think somebody is doing things that are illegal if they're on your side. So they don't feel like a rebel and they don't feel like a terrorist if they're on your side. But I would think that lots of people would say that Che Guevara was a terrorist, whereas lots of people would see that Che Guevara was a hero who was trying to help the average person and was talking about things long before other people were bringing them up. So it's really cool because Oda starts this entire thing off with the picture of the idea of Che Guevara, and then Disgusting Caribou tries to pawn himself off throughout the thing as Che. So we look at one type of leadership because Che was incredibly charismatic, pulled people towards him though in kind of the same way that Luffy does. So the more I looked into Che, because I hadn't spent a lot of time within my history world studying Che Guevara, just a little here and there, but the more I looked into it, the more it felt kind of Luffy-esque in the way that he leads people, in the way that, yeah, he was really charismatic and he draws people to him and they want to be a part of the thing, but he also finds himself attaching himself to people who have similar ideologies as him. And so if he disappears, those ideologies still belong to them. They don't need Che in order to keep them going. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Someone saying he killed so many, dude. Yeah, the Revolutionary Army in One Piece has killed so many as well. Like, we're talking about military forces.
100%.
Any historical figure who kills people is difficult. However, literally Dragon's ship is, named after one of his ships. And I'm pretty sure that Oda has either Fidel Castro or Che Guevara in his office. Like, yes, Che Guevara is not like a politically unanimously seen good guy, but all of these things about him being charismatic and being seen as a liberator by a lot of people is true. Like, that is real stuff.
Absolutely true.
It's Che. Yeah. It's also worth noting that, like, One Piece examines a thing that revolutionarily violent groups around the world acknowledge, which is that the violence of the status quo is still violence. The violence of the ruling state, they obviously, to maintain power, a ruling state will say their violence is a justified necessity, but revolutionary thinkers tend to see the violence of the state in the enforcement against the freedoms of its civilians as violence itself. And I think One Piece is a series that is very, very aware of that perspective. And it sometimes sees that perspective with figures like doflamingo as this is a purely evil act. But I think there are places where the violence of state is seen as like a necessity, like Cobra fighting against the Civil War. So, like, things are difficult and complicated, but yeah, I don't think Mamadrock is at all wrong that this is meant to highlight Che Guevara through allegory as a charismatic revolutionary leader.
Che went all around the world. He became a symbol of anti-imperialist struggle. He traveled everywhere and courting to places like Africa and Latin America, Congo, Bolivia, and he gave advice and guidance on how to have a revolutionary moment and movement. And so you need to remember that he's kind of pinning this right as you turn the page. You start off with Che, who is the type of leader who goes all over the world, can be anywhere, and charismatically pull people to them and helps them to amplify and organize their voice. When that happens, I kind of looked at this Che-like thing and thought, that's very Luffy, moving all over the place, kind of helping people to find agency in the things that they believe in and help to amplify what's important to them. And if you think I'm wrong, I want you to start thinking about what occurred with Vivi. He goes there and he helps fight in a revolutionary moment and fight against somebody with Crocodile. Just because they happen to be the ones who are in power doesn't mean that he is not teaching somebody how to have a revolutionary moment against a person who has gained massive public popularity as well, who's doing things that aren't good. And every single place he goes, he helps to create revolutions and he helps to teach people how to advocate and have agency for themselves, which is really what Che was doing. And so when I'm looking at the legacy of Che and how people really went into him as a symbol of rebellion and revolutionary fervor all around the world, he actually started to make people think about what social justice looked like everywhere. And so in a lot of ways, I think that Oda sees Luffy as being a Che type character. And if you think Luffy hasn't been the cause of mass death, that would be ridiculous. Oda has made Luffy be the cause of tons and tons of different rebellions and stuff that have led to a lot of death and a lot of destruction.
Buggy and Blackbeard wouldn't have their crews if not for Luffy and Impel Down.
Exactly.
Those are two major forces of piracy in the world who have their crews in place in the world because of Luffy's intercession in Enies Lobby. I also think, like, because a country pitches the violence of the norm as good, and every human is susceptible to what they're being told through propaganda, it just is how it is, we tend to really easily slip into the idea that revolutionary violence is bad by all means, and there is bad to it no matter what. But I want people to think about this. You can disagree with revolutionary violence, but we will be being politically dishonest if we pretend One Piece is a story that sees revolutionary violence as bad. One Piece sees revolutionary violence as good, like, or at least having the potential for good. It is not a unanimously bad thing. And if we try to impose any political view on One Piece, we have to look at it through a lens where there's no way it can be telling us that political violence can be good because that's a bad thing. Then we're going to be reading the series very dishonestly.
So I always tell people, anything you're doing, politics, science, everything is questionable. And if it isn't questionable, then it isn't worth it. And so the reason that I think it's really important to think about this is Guevara's life, he inspired all these political movements, arts, activism, but really he was talking about discussions on socialism versus capitalism and the struggle of oppression. And he was there whenever people had insurgencies or human right abuses. And when we're thinking about the story that Oda has created here, he's creating a story where we're seeing human right abuses left, right, and center, and then the fight against that and people who are attempting to rebel and fight. And what Luffy does in the most chaotic of ways, which sometimes makes me feel this way about Che, since he moved all over the world, just dropping into spots like a parachute and helping people to become something and pulling out in a very Luffy-esque way. Luffy does it though more in a chaos in the moment, and the people around him are the people who end up kind of creating the organization and the order of things, whereas Luffy just kind of drops into it, and Che actually helped people organize. So I thought that was a really incredible way to begin, because I think that Luffy and Che have a lot in common, but I also think that Blackbeard and Luffy have a lot in common. But as we've talked about in the past, they're two sides of the same coin. Luffy is this person who's running around and looking at helping people to reach their goals, and their goals are in line with his goals. They're not trying to take over the world. They're not power goals. He's not trying to power lift people up. He's trying to reach personal goals that have meaning. And then meanwhile, Blackbeard is about personal gain, reaching the top, and everyone wants to reach the top. So eventually they're not going to be able to, and they're going to have to fight against him because they're going to want to be at the top. And then, in my opinion, Law is like if Blackbeard and Luffy had a baby. Law is neither on the whole of Luffy's side or on the whole of Blackbeard's side. He's kind of in between, and he doesn't know exactly what his leadership style is or exactly how he feels about different things. And because of that, it feels like Law is right in the middle of those two people, and he can be persuaded to be on either side depending on how things feel. And so I thought it was really cool to start with Che Guevara, because for me, Luffy, Law, and Blackbeard are all different types of this revolutionary person embodied in characters. And I feel like he split their character up amongst
Someone
them.
just said something that reminded me of a conversation we were having about this that I think brings us into your observation on an inspiration for Doffy. And I think at first you thought it was a Caesar figure, and I'm realizing when Oda wanted to create his Queen of the Underworld, he named a character near them after Izanami instead of naming that character Izanami. And you point out Caesar being named Caesar. I pointed out that Fishman Island dwells on the themes of fascism. We saw someone in chat just now, or a little while ago, say that Fishman Island was the first time we saw the potential evils of revolutionary violence, whereas revolutionary violence until now had been a good thing only. And I think it makes sense that we see allegories to fascism now, because we're seeing revolutionary violence as potentially good a lot of the time in One Piece. But I think revolutionary violence can also be a bad thing for certain. And that gets into what you found as Doffy's inspiration. But before you say that, I want to say that the reason I think fascist allegory is good here and Caesar's name being Caesar is good is because most modern fascist movements were a revolutionarily violent movement that usually sought to recreate the image of Caesar. In the West, at least, most fascist movements were meant to be hearkening back to the dictatorship era of Rome. So do you want to get into what you found for Doffy's inspiration?
Yeah. So the reason that we're starting here today, guys, is because I thought it would be interesting if I kind of took you on where my brain is at while I'm reading this arc so far. And so as I'm reading, I'm trying to put them into what political ideas I think they are, because it's clear right away when you open the page and you see Che Guevara that you say to yourself, like, okay, Oda is definitely, again, talking about leadership, but he's also talking about following, and he's done it for 2 arcs now. So I'm like, let me pay attention to what leaders I think that he is highlighting. And so at first, I thought that Doffy was just highlighting the ideas of Julius Caesar, as anyone does. I mean, number one, we have the whole Colosseum, and even though it's kind of in a Spain-like world, and in one of the SBSs, he said he took the Colosseum off of Greece, which I was like, okay, go with your bad self, whatever. I know it is a thing. So I looked at Julius Caesar's life, and for sure, for Doffy, you have, I broke it down, asked ChatGPT because I wanted to break it down. What are the main components of Caesar's power and where did they come from? What was his downfalls? I went back into one of my history books to look at some things. And for sure, I would say that his ambition went too far. It made other people in the area too uncomfortable, which makes absolute sense. I think that Doffy is going to overextend himself, and Law knows that, because that's why Law is already doing things like pushing against Doffy's ability to meet up to his promises to people, because you know that if you push yourself too far and people are already feeling like you may be too dangerous and too powerful, and then you don't go and live up to the promises that you make, well, now there's no reason to keep your ass around, is there? Like, now you can just piss off and die. And so it was a really good idea for him to make that kind of ambition of power and having political rivals looking at him for a resulting assassination. And then you have the dictatorship, where Caesar appointed a dictator, and I was thinking about that dude that I just started to meet, like, is it Treble?
Trouble?
Ugh. And so that idea of a dictatorship and a whole piece that goes back to him and how they were worried about it was going to become a monarchy, and that he failed to address social issues and an overextension of power. You're pushing yourself out to the ends. Your bank account and your ability can't back up with your mouth promised. But then I remembered, for God's sakes, Mama Drog. He said right in the beginning that he thinks Don Quixote, Doffy, the doflamingo, is after Spanish. And so I was like, okay, well, in that case, that would be Francesco Franco. And he was born in 1892, but he was a Spanish general and a dictator who ruled Spain, and from around 1939 all the way to his death in 1975. And so when you think about that, this was a dude who came in, rose to prominence, and then with support of Nazi Germany and fascist Italy, he went against the leading nationalist faction. He went against them as the nationalist faction against the Republican government, which is so like what I've seen so far in this arc, where in comes Doffy, and he comes in with the backup of both the government and the Navy, and he kicks out the ruling person who's there. So we already have a civil war within this country, and then he has an authoritarian regime. He wins the civil war, then establishes an authoritarian, and with censorship, repression of all public opponents, strict control over aspects of all Spanish society. And he did it so well that it became known as Francoism. And so when I started to think about how that was known as Francoism, I was like, dude had, for sure, Oda had Francesco Franco in his mind when he was thinking of Doffy. And that's one of the reasons that he made him Spanish. Because if you have him coming in and having strict repression of public opponents, strict control over all of society, you've got Doffy in a nutshell right there. Boom. And then on top of it, he had a totalitarian rule where he centralized all the power into his own hands, created a highly centralized state that was all around him as an ultimate authority, and then abolished all democratic institutions, political parties, and suppressed all the labor unions. Hum the hell on. Doffy comes in, creates a factory that you can't even see above ground, keeps it underneath a stadium where he has full control over it, and the only people who are allowed in there or allowed to work with them have full allegiance to him. He is at the center of totalitarian rule, and only his family is allowed upper positions. Like, come the shit on. And then his economic policies, exact same thing, protectionism, etc., etc. So when I looked at all the rest of his life and then what happens to him, I was like, for sure, I think Doffy is based off of both Caesar-esque, which is why he's bringing in these things like Colosseums, and then also he's based off Francesco Franco. And I hope I'm saying that right. I apologize if I'm not, to all Spanish-speaking humans.
I want to add on that people are saying, oh, I thought he was based off of the Man of La Mancha. Absolutely also that. I think there is no One Piece character with a flat inspiration. I think Doffy is a blend of a lot of things.
Oh, I would agree.
But I think we're coming at this today from a political philosophy angle. And I think when you look at it that way, there is so much in this section. We've kind of figured out that everything from Fishman Island up to here, I'm going to get into something we talked about on the phone that is so cool, okay? This whole section, we got into this last time, but this whole section is about leadership again, but no, because leadership and learning to be a leader and what it means to be a leader was the theme of Alabasta and the Baroque Works saga. The reason we were getting into that then was Luffy was still learning to be a leader. However, now Luffy is a static character in this arc. He is a constant, he is a given through this whole saga. The reason Luffy is static is because this is about what it means to choose a leader and the meaning of loyalty and trust. Every moment we see of leadership being tested isn't a leader making choices on how to be a leader. It's a leader being a constant, acting the way they are known to be. And the difficulty, the choices, and the drama is put on people choosing who they will follow. What it means to choose a leader is the theme of this entire saga, going back, well, I'd say specifically mostly Punk Hazard and Dressrosa, but also Fishman Island to an extent, and honestly, Return to Sabaody with the fake Straw Hats, choosing a leader by reputation alone. Who you choose to follow is the theme of this stretch. So Luffy gets to be a constant and not be tested as a character the way he was in the past. Doffy's not being tested as a character, he's a constant. Caesar's a constant. Tomorrow Black is a constant. All of these leaders are constants, and all of the moments of stress and intrigue are from their underlings, from the concept of who you give faith to and what you get in return. We're going to get more into that because Mama Drox had amazing observations, but it makes all of this so much more interesting to realize that this is an inversion of the themes of the Baroque Work saga. Oh, I love this. I love this idea of this being about how you choose a leader to pick.
So the other thing that I think is really interesting about Doffy before we move on, because it's something that I didn't super realize, and when I started to think about it, I was like, shut up. I tested it. So I look at unearned loyalty in politics and why you have different types of unearned loyalty, and freaking Doffy fits them all. Identity politics is people may align themselves with the political entity based on their social identity, their race, etc. He hits that with all the people who are at the top with him. A cult to personality because he's a charismatic leader, cultivating a devoted following. Historical or cultural influence, like long-term, used to be in control but no longer is, was the original royalty of the area.
Royalty, who's a celestial dragon.
Exactly.
Which is perfect for fascism too, because it's a call to the past of a country.
Exactly. Then misinformation or propaganda, manipulating tactics, manipulating and misinformation campaigns and propaganda in newspapers and other areas. Fear and intimidation. And lack of alternatives. People have no one else that they can believe in, and so they have to support this leader because they're worried about even a worse outcome. Boom. He literally fits all 6 areas for unearned loyalty in politics. Oda built a brilliant bad guy. Brilliant. Absolutely freaking brilliant.
You have a saga about the theme of where you put your trust and who you pick as a leader. And yeah, you figured out something brilliant. The final boss of that saga, of this connected saga, is a guy who is the embodiment of every form of unearned loyalty. It's so perfect.
Yep. It's brilliant. How do you find that? How do you create a character who relates to historical characters and has every single one of the identified pieces of unearned loyalty in politics? It's incredible writing. I was like, God dang, that's amazing. I hate him, but I hate him because he's so good. And that's very different. So then the other thing about Doffy is it's true. Like people say, and he's hot. But yes, and he's hot.
The aesthetification of leadership is a part of cult of personality, a part of a lot of political systems, which include fascism, but that's because fascism calls to classicalism, which is also the aesthetification of leadership in monarchies and empires.
But it is one of the reasons why people like John F. Kennedy apparently had a lot easier time in some ways because he was so good looking that people wanted to trust and believe what he said because they wanted to have somebody so hot in power. Doffy being hot helps helps because he inspires a different type of loyalty from people who either want to be kind of a cool kid thing where you want to be liked by him, you want him to notice you, you want him to shine some of his greatness, his hotness, his charisma on you, because then it makes you feel like your greatness goes up because he recognizes you. And so, yeah, 100%. I think that is one of the reasons that he is a dangerous politician. Who created Astro? Okay, so Osamu Tezuka said that one of the reasons that he created his manga in the first place is that, and everybody knows this is normal lore, but I'm just putting it out there so I can talk about what I noticed inside of One Piece. He said that one of the reasons he did it is because he was so blindsided by World War II that he went from being a child in his town with a mom who was happy, who was living a good life, eating good food and having nice times with friends, to a person who was watching bodies burnt and broken float by him in a river. And that he felt like there was such a giant juxtaposition between childhood and adulthood where he knew nothing about politics and problems in history, and he didn't understand the world that he lived in a real way. And so World War II caught him completely off guard, and he was totally bowled over it. And it's why he ended up having such a cognitive dissonance between the world of adulthood and the world of childhood, and he felt like he'd been ripped from it. And so he said that he created his pieces because he wanted to teach children about politics and war and pain and hate and worry in a way that would make sense to them, so that when they started learning about it as adults, that it would have something to sit on, that it would sit inside of something and it would not create cognitive dissonance within their thinking, and they could understand it in a deeper and better way. So when I started to see all the different things this arc, and started to see all the different politicians, the types of political power, all the different things that Oda is calling into this manga, I really started to see that legacy, that will, if you made, of Osamu Tezuka, of making sure that you create a platform in which children are going to have a better understanding of the world, politics, problems, and history, so that as they're learning it as adults, it fits in like a puzzle piece. Because whether they knew it or not, they already had examples of all these things and exemplars, and they're able to fit it into their life in a way that makes sense because somebody taught them about it in a soft way. And so when they find things out, it fits, and they aren't completely left out of the world. And I think even for some adults, that when they read One Piece and then they start to look at history and they start to read other things, that they might find that it fits into their mind easier and they don't have as much cognitive dissonance, because whether they knew it or not, Oda built them a foundation, and then he got out some wood and he stuck up a basic structure, and it's your job to put up the walls and decide what color shit is and to buy your own furniture. But he built you part of a house so that you aren't sitting there completely left in the dark. And I love that.
There's so much depth to explore and sink your teeth in if you want to, but that just gives you the concepts and theories if you don't, so that you are ready to accept the world for being different than it might be pitched to you as a child.
He gives you a nice old foundation, and he puts the frame of a house in, and he says, you put your own walls up, bitch. You paint it any color you want.
So there is something to me so beautiful about the idea of inherited will from one mangaka to another, especially in light of Akira Toriyama's passing, who designed most of what the modern shonen looks like, especially in the era of One Piece. A lot's changed since One Piece, I think, because of One Piece, but One Piece carries a lot of DNA of Dragon Ball, and I think there's something very special about the idea of One Piece being about inherited will, and One Piece carrying on the will of mangaka who have come before, and what they want to be able to tell as a story, and what they want to be able to do for the world. And I think that
I agree, Drock, and I think that's why it's so special. I would agree.
The mangaka of Astro
Osamu
would be very happy to see where the medium he started has gone and what One Piece is doing.
I would agree. And so I think that part of the reason that Oda has made a manga all about inherited will is because I think that he really recognizes not only the impact that history is going to have on you, whether you like it or not, you're going to have a type of historical will that's going to lead you in different directions, but also because he realizes that for good or for bad, but for good for him in so many ways, he inherited the will of people like Osamu Tezuka and others who helped him to see himself as a teacher in a very interesting and special way. A teacher who likes to draw very large breasticles.
It's just like you're in history class, except everyone has giant tits.
You're really doing this angle, eh?
Look, we're having fun.
Can I just say right now,
human
to human?
Yeah.
I'm proud of you. I loved seeing our Straw Hats and their old men beards and mustaches. Oh God, it's so based. It was amazing. I was like, sauce me some spy fits. That's amazing. It just looks so good. It was a very, very good choice. Yes, it was very Blues Brothers. I loved it so much. I love especially looking at Zoro with his mustache and his outfit. Yes, this person. It fits Zoro so well. Zoro could not have looked better.
One of my least favorite Frankie fits ever, the pigtails. I love a lot of Frankie's post-time skip hair. I do not like the pigtails, but some people love it. Some people find it fun.
I love it. I especially love it because in one of the SBSs, somebody talked about Oda being a pervert, which they always do. And then Oda said, but sometimes you just get used to things, just the way suddenly Frankie's pigtails aren't looking that weird to me, which is wrong. And I was like, yeah, slay those pigtails, bitch. You look so good.
I love Luffy going to the Coliseum as Lucy and doing his gum gum. And then everyone's like, he's stretching. And he just pulls his hand back and he goes, just a normal punch.
There's so many phenomenal humor moments in this one.
Say, not many arcs have action drama this good with comedy of this caliber. Like most of the funny arcs are the ones where we're a little bit less feeling the drama and action. But Dressrosa managed to be very, very funny while also having high stakes drama and action.
This one is already one of my very favorite arcs, and we're not even in that deep. And I'm already like high five to Dressrosa right on the top of your knuckles.
What?
This moment, for instance, when we find out about personally, I think it's kind of heartless for him to use a Logia fruit as a mere prize for his business. Think of how my life could change if I had that power for myself. What? You'll never get to eat a fruit like that. Hey, wasn't Ace your? And then Luffy, I want it. The flame fruit. Say, do you want to eat it, Frankie? I'd rather be able to swim. I can't eat it since I already have gum powers, but I don't want anyone else having Ace's ability. So it's like a memento of him based on how Doflamingo was teasing you. It could easily be a trap. But can I say one thing? If this is your chance, don't miss it. You don't want to regret anything. And in either case, we got business at the Coliseum. Let's go. Okay. So when we're talking about leadership and everybody's leadership is being tested here, Luffy's isn't. And because of this single conversation with Frankie,
the followers are being tested. I think Luffy's a constant.
Yes. Because of this conversation here, we know that Luffy's leadership isn't being tested. He has this time with Frankie where they have this really frank conversation, and Frankie recognizes this deep need for Luffy to retrieve something that is so important to Luffy, and he's like, you can't miss this opportunity. So Frankie knows that Luffy's going to be taken out of the damn game. If Luffy decides to do this, then that's that. Luffy is busy doing shit. And what does Frankie say? Go do it. Go do it, boss. Go do it, captain. We're going to go off and do what we need to do. We're going to make things good, and you can count on us, and you don't have to look after us. It's okay. You go follow your own path that you need for your own peace. And when that happens, we as readers know, this isn't about Luffy's leadership. His leadership isn't in any question. We're going to be looking at the leadership of others. And that's great.
It's also something I pointed out in our call that I love in this scene, where this is the closest anyone has come to not underestimating Luffy. Doflamingo says, this ball of rubber fists has rolled through so many people who said they were strong enough to beat him in a punch fight. I'm not going to throw hands with this boy. I am going to trap him. But the reason he still underestimated him is because he didn't understand that Luffy's strength is not just him, it's his crew, and that his crew all carry a piece of his strength with him. We're going to get more into that because this is an observation Mama Drock had, but I love that Doffy has gotten closer than anyone to not underestimating our boy.
Yeah, I loved it too. He is a balanced straw hat. You know what's happening here? I realized this arc. I love Frankie. I just love that kid. He's just great. And at one time I was like, he's fine. And now I'm like, who were you when you thought Frankie was fine? Like he's such a great person. He has a genuine ability to feel people's pain and to sympathize with them. And he'll let it overwhelm him for a moment. And then he'll say, okay, how can I help you now? And he'll come up with suggestions. None of the other characters have as much empathy as he does. Like, you think about all the times that he cries for people's stories. And so because of that, when he has that time with Luffy in the alley, you know he really means it, because Frankie is the one who will sit down and bawl his ass off because you tell him about how important the Mary is to you and why, and it makes him cry. And so we know we can genuinely trust when he feels for you, he means it. He feels for you, and he's here for your emotional needs and for you to go on your own path that will help you. And you just got to love that shit. I think I love that kid. I think I just love that kid. We need to make another apology. We did further research. People who are of Japanese descent do not get nosebleeds when they get erections.
Rumor that started because of it being an anime and it just was really popularized. But no, it was like an old wives' tale in Japan that became popularized in manga.
Yeah, and I've since looked it up some more, and apparently they used to just, and I had to see a lot of them, I'm not gonna lie, they used to just show big old boners in manga, and it would be like picture boner, and then they were like, no, Western people were like, no, you can't show boners, and so they started to use nosebleeds as a euphemism for boners.
Yeah, just because that was an old wives' tale in Japan, so it worked as language, and then that got interpreted. The rumor that I shared as misinformation last time.
Pretty fascinating. Pretty fascinating.
Because like the ethnic groups in Japan and a lot of Asia are so similar, and it's not a thing in other countries. So I was like, that's weird that it's that way. But I've been told it is, and I'd looked it up before the internet was, a little better about helping you clear up misinformation. And I'd found sources that were like, yeah, it totally is. It even gave statistics. So like, I thought it was true, but yeah, no, just a lie. I also wanted to, dude, we are going to never stop delving into this Frankie scene, but we're talking about how this arc is about trust and leadership and choosing a leader. Yeah. And part of that, we talk about what does the leader give you for their trust? Luffy gives absolute trust in return. He asks if Frankie wants to hold on the memento of his brother, asks if he wants it. You can be trusted with this. And on top of that, Frankie's like, I can handle the rest on my own. Don't worry. And Luffy trusts him to do it. Luffy is so okay trusting his crew to just go on and carry on his will.
Agreed, but not just that. Luffy says, I don't want anyone to have his fruit. And then he looks at Frankie and says, do you want it, Frankie? And that shows that to Luffy, his crew isn't anyone. His crew is family.
Yep.
Like, he just makes that clear to Frankie right there and then. You aren't anyone. You're something different. And so Frankie knows how important that is. And for Frankie's answer to be something as simple and as honest as I like swimming is perfect, because it's not going to hurt Luffy's feelings. It doesn't undermine the generosity of the jester. It just is the perfect thing that you could possibly say back if you weren't interested in having it and all that that entailed. I wonder whether or not the peeing in the water man is going to end up with the fruit, and if Luffy is going to let him take it, just because he's so in love with Luffy and the Straw Hats right now. And part of me wonders if he's going to be a crewmate. He does have his own boat. Bartolomeo has his own boat. But I do wonder if he's going to end up being a Straw Hat, or if we're going to start building an armada and we're going to have more than one boat and communication between them, and whether or not Bartolomeo is going to be a person who's going to be on the first of our armada. If we're going to start, because if anyone can be part of, here's what I was thinking, just so we can go into it. If anyone can be part of an armada, and if we can start building up something bigger, it would be someone like Bardo. He has his own boat. He has a bit of a crew. He could stay on his boat. We could start being a little bit like a mini version of some of the other ones, and we could have more than one boat, because Bardo has so much freaking love for the Straw Hats that his loyalty is already bonko. So if we were just in communication with him through a den mushy, hi, it's me, Bardo.
Hey, on this call, are you predicting that, Bardo, that you might join the crew or a Straw Hat Armada? Is that a prediction you're making?
Yeah, I'm making that prediction about Bardo right now. Can you write that down? Yeah. Okay.
Straw Hat, you were predicting either joining the crew or an armada.
Yeah, because it could be both. I hope we do. I want a little armada. I want to high five Bardo and his armada-ness.
I mean, Whitebeard had one, so that's not fair if we don't get one.
Yeah, we deserve it. We're cute.
Oh yeah, ever since Bardo's been introduced, everyone's wanted Bardo to meet Boa.
Why?
Because they're both fanboy and fangirl of Luffy.
You would just like the two of them to sit there and be like, I love him. You're so right. I'm going to marry him.
Or compete over who loves him more.
A simp off. That's amazing. Yeah, I don't hate that. I don't hate it. Yeah, I can see that.
Can I say, you called me at a wild time. Literally, I think the chapter before it gets revealed, you called me like, is doflamingo a celestial dragon? And what I love
and then
about
you
this
thought I'd read it. You were like,
you read it. I thought you were reacting to what you just read. You don't get a gold star for this because there's no way to prove that you did the prediction.
No way to prove it.
Yeah, but
you were like, oh my God, you found out. And I was like, wait, I'm right. And you were like, oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought you'd read it, but you were just guessing why he was able to control the newspaper. But it's one of my favorite twists in this series because it entirely flips the power dynamics of the arc all at once. Everything falls apart in an instant.
Unbelievably. Like suddenly you're like, well, that puts you on a very different level. Like a very different level. And so, yeah, we'll talk about all the things that entails. Like, so bad. In Japanese, I was the same character as Celestial Dragon, translated celestial demon instead of heavenly demon. Interesting. I love that our boy Sanji. Maybe I just love the Straw Hats more. What if I just love the Straw Hats more and now they're in my soul and I can't get rid of them and I'm going to start to become even more annoying to people and make everybody. What if I'm standing on the corner handing out Straw Hat books?
And I guess that's what the future holds.
I'm very sad about the little toy soldier who's the dad. Oh, boo. Having the little one leg and moving his little ass around town and taking care of his daughter and finding out why all the toys are toys and how they're all being turned into toys, then they still feel like the person that they were and their family doesn't remember them. Shut up. It's so bad.
It's one of those ways. I was watching someone talk about this recently, how One Piece always has happiness that gets somehow revealed to be actually bad or secretly bad. And this is one of the most heartbreaking and brutal ways that that's been done by having everyone so happy because they don't know what Doffy's taken from them.
God. And so that made me think about that absolute control. That's why I was talking about that absolute control that he has, because a lot of people have this need for people to know how horrible they are. Like they need some credit for their greatness almost, you know? Like if you think about the way that Caesar had to publicize everything that he was saying and put it on the TV and go public in a way that everybody would know that it was him and he's responsible for it. What is really scary when you have something that's actually scary is when you have a person who's like, oh, no, people don't need to give me credit. I'm good just pulling the strings. You stand back here and I'll pull the strings. I don't need anybody to give me credit. And then when I found out that this fucker is a string holder, I was like, what a perfect thing for him, because that's what he is a master puppeteer. He's been pulling the strings of everything. He doesn't need people to see it. He doesn't care if those strings are spider webs that people can't see, that are thin silk webs, just pulling them to do what he wants. All that he cares is that everything is done the way that he wants it. He doesn't give a if people know that it was him doing it. And that's one of the reasons that he likes having multiple names. He doesn't need every deed to come back to him immediately. He doesn't need everyone to know exactly who he is. He's a string puller. And I thought, like, masterful.
I love Doffy's fruit. And like I said, I couldn't tell you what my guess was because my guess was right. I actually guessed that he had a string fruit, like, immediately when he mind controlled the dude. I was like, I think strings make sense.
You were saying that. I can't remember. Yeah, I think I get a purple mushroom for that, but I also get a gold star for Dragon being Luffy's dad.
We forgot that you said that. You get a gold star for there being tiny people. You said there'd be Lilliputians. You also said there'd be dwarves. You said they'd be separate. So I think you get a shroom star and a star. You get a star and a half basically right now. So you get 3.5. But you also get 2 more gold stars, throwing gold stars. Because you guessed there'd be a higher level of Cypher Pull, and then you later said their name would be Cypher Pull 0.
And that is simply because, which is hilarious, because then frickin' Oda put this in an SBS. Somebody was like, why did you call it this? I can't remember what it was inside of one of his SBSs. And he's like, well, I was going to call it this because it's more accurate. And I was going to call it this because it made more sense. But I decided to call it this because it sounded better. And I was like, that's the exact reason that I said that we would have a CP0. CP10 sounds like sleepy time, and I'm sticking by it, and that does not sound frightful, but CP0, that shit sounds wicked.
Sounds terrifying.
Terrifying. Whereas CP10 sounds like sleepy time. And I was like, no. That's not going to be sleepy time. It just isn't. I love that CP0 is supposed to be watching after the people within governments. And are they everyone? Are they watching like government, Navy, everyone?
They're meant to be keeping tabs on the big players in the world, anything major, and
by big players, do you mean like the red hair shanks as well?
Probably if they can.
Fascinating.
And they work for the celestial dragons directly, which is interesting that like their higher designation isn't necessarily because they're doing something more dangerous. It's because they're working for the celestials instead of the world government.
But the celestials are such faces. Even if I think that there's a possibility that Luffy's mom is a celestial dragon.
That is a thing you brought up since last stream, yeah.
Well, because if Luffy's mom was a celestial dragon, it would also make sense when I said that Luffy could be two types of dragons. So there was a yin and a yang of dragonness that created him. And one of them would be a celestial dragon, and one of them would be his dad, who's a dragon. And together they made Luffy.
The idea that you thought early on Luffy and Dragon would be the opposite dragons of the yin and yang, but instead, Dragon and his mom could be, and Luffy is the balance of yin and yang that comes between that.
Yeah, and it's kind of an interesting thing now, I'm wondering. Sometimes when I'm making predictions about the future in One Piece, I'm looking at it from hints that are being dropped, and sometimes I'm half looking at hints and just half looking at what I would have done if I was creating a narrative, and that's what I would have done. I would have made Luffy's mom a celestial dragon and Luffy's dad dragon. He wouldn't allow to be in with her, and Luffy's mom wouldn't be allowed to keep Luffy because he was the product of this relationship with Dragon who was under them, and so that she would be an upper level person and she would want to protect her Luffy, and so she gives Luffy to Luffy's dad. Luffy's dad is a not dad. He's like a dad but not, and then Luffy's grandfather ends up having to take Luffy. And then, as I said, and as you and I pointed out, he does not raise him, but does a very good job of leaving him alone on islands with other people.
Hey, can you watch my kid? For how long? How long do kids take to grow up?
When is this kid done? When is it grown? Till then. And so I think it would be a very, very interesting idea to have Luffy be the product of two different types of dragons. And it would also make sense then why Luffy's mom didn't have Luffy with her, because she would be so worried about what would happen to Luffy with the other dragons as being the version of Mudblood.
Interesting. I think it could be interesting.
Lots of people don't like the idea of Luffy's mom being in this place. And some of them are just because they really want Croco mom. They're like, no, Croc mom. And I'm like, I just have a feeling it's going to be more like something like this.
Look, Croc mom assigned female at birth, based idea. I think there's a lot of evidence. It makes a lot of sense to me. I think it's actually, I believe in that. Yeah. Crocodile's Luffy's mom? No, get a hold of yourself.
Bellamy is killing it, and he's really having to go through this like identity crisis of who he is and what he believes and how uncared for he is. Like, I actually feel shitty bad for him, and I don't want to because I hate that crap face. And him getting punched in the face brought me so much joy. But yeah, kind of like this kid.
He feels so broken, and it really feels like the only reason he's still loyal to Doffy is because it's all he feels like he has, and because he said he would be. He's just a fanboy who, like, there is none of the appeal left, and he's just doing it because he said he would.
Yeah, I really do feel like he's a person who needs love, and he wouldn't know how to articulate the idea of needing love, and he needs to feel approval from somebody who makes him feel like he's worthy, because he doesn't have any of his own feelings of self-worth, and he thinks the only person who can prove that he's worthy is Doffy.
Because we know he went to Skypiea. I think he went there and either got his ass kicked or just didn't with anyone. My theory is genuinely that Doffy couldn't reach him. There was nothing to do. He saw a statue being built in Luffy's honor, and he just hung out.
I really like that idea.
And just was like, I am free here. I just had to kill my right-hand man. I'm just going to hang out.
Yeah. It turns out I like post-time skip Bellamy, and I feel a lot of feelings for him.
He seems so broken, and he's just going because it's all he has.
But also, like, somebody asked me, and it was funny because you and I talked about it again. Somebody asked me about timing and whether or not I found other areas of timing, and I feel bad because I don't mention like, oh, here's a timing thing, and I don't think to mention it, even though it's part of my lore in my world when I'm looking at things.
Oh, it's everywhere.
When he was talking about him going up to Skypiea, I thought about the incredible timing of in the time skip, which is timing. Then he goes up to the place that Luffy used to be when he was only a believer in the new world of pirates and the new age of pirates. And suddenly he goes up to the sky, which was an old age of pirates thing to do and to believe, this idea of there being a place above and being able to get it, and a different version of piracy is adventure and da 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 da. And he was looking about how he meant nothing to Doffy, and Doffy just humiliated him beyond belief in front of everyone and just said, go away. I basically don't like you. And then he goes up to Skypiea and he spends a bunch of time in Skypiea and he levels himself up in a bunch of different ways. And I was thinking about the timing of that when we come out and they call them the worst generation ever. And yet, in our opinion, as people who are Luffy believers and Straw Hat believers, we would see moving towards Luffy's way of thinking as being an improvement, even though he's now part of the worst generation ever. And it would seem that Bellamy, whether he knows it or not, is in a personal kind of conflict of moving towards that type of thinking and becoming more like Luffy. And you could see it because it was way too fast and way too easy for when Luffy was hanging out the window when he screamed, "Don't give up, Bellamy. You got this." And Bellamy was immediately like looked over and noticed it was Luffy, and it immediately hit different. That wouldn't have hit different if Bellamy hadn't been going through his own cognitive dissonance. And so that's what I was going to say is I'll point out more about the timing pieces. But the other thing is I can't believe how much cognitive dissonance is part of the whole built-in underpinnings of the story. He keeps making people have to stand back and look at their own things and ask, am I right? Is this the right way to do it? And people change on both ways, but we're seeing it over and over again. And so that's why I thought it was really interesting when we saw Bellamy, because I was like, that is a huge, huge person to go through that kind of a change. I feel so bad for him because it would be really difficult to give up on his feelings for Doffy. And can you ever trust Bellamy? Could you? I don't know.
Hard to say.
I think that if Doffy ever felt like being like, my bad, I love you, come back, that I really feel like Bellamy would be like, really?
You love me? I'm cared about? Am I good enough? Am I good enough?
But when everyone's talking about Eminem, I was thinking like, ooh, Bellamy went up to Skypiea. Did he meet Eminem? Did Eminem come back? Is he still on the moon? What's up with that? What's up with that boy?
I hope Edaru's just been hanging out on the moon like, what do I do now? I'm here.
He looked at the pictures. He beat some people up. He had a thing go on. I think
I'm just here now.
Luffy's fight as Lucy and going into the ring with everyone. I like how we keep going to different places. We go to the little people and the green bit, and we go to the whole piece that's happening underneath. We go to Luffy inside of the Colosseum. We have our Sanji out there. We go to our Sunny. I like that we have all these different areas. I think Luffy is definitely going to be the connector of all the different weapons. He's going to be the conduit, like a conduit of all of it. Anyways, I like that we had different stories so that we could come back and forth between them. I think it's one of the reasons that I'm enjoying this arc so much. I think sometimes when the arc is really hard and we're going through hard material and we just stick in the hard stuff, it's too much. Mm-hmm. Even when we were in the last arc, when we were in a different scene, it was still the same scene. The drawing had to be reasonably the same. The atmosphere was reasonably the same. You couldn't completely change it. Where in this one, you go all the way from like stadium life to freaking overgrown plants and little people, different color, different everything, to toy people. Everywhere we go into the different places is so different feeling that it almost feels like a break. It's the reason why I always read 4 books at one time. I never have one book going. Anytime I don't like the choices that someone makes, I switch to a different book until I can handle the choices of the other ones. That's what it felt like in this, is that it back and forth between all of them, and it lets us see them, because anytime that anything gets too serious or anytime that anything gets too difficult, we move into a different person. We will come back and get into the difficult stuff, and we will come back and have to reckon with it, but we get to move into another area and almost have like a little breath away. And it makes a huge difference in my ability to stick with it and enjoy it without feeling tsunamied by it. So I think that the way that somebody said the architecture of it, I would agree. The architecture of this arc so far has been super enjoyable. enjoyable. I love getting to watch Lucy fighting in the ring. I love it when we go out and find out the history of the king, the history of the little people, the fight and the battle, tiny bits of information. Seeing Law fight with Doffy was incredible because you could also see the impact that having been Doffy's underling when you're Law impacted his ability to fight against him, because Law is better than the fight that he gave Doffy. Do I think that he can beat Doffy? I don't think he can, but I think that Law didn't even give it his all. He usually, when he creates an operating room, he could take people's heart out for God's sakes and keep them alive. He can cut people into all these different pieces. He split a boat in half. He does whatever he wants. He makes new animals by putting things together, and yet his fight that he gave Doffy, it just was not at the level. And it made me realize that there was like this leftoverness inside of him of having been Doffy's underling, where you almost have it's like your parents feel stronger and like they know more than they actually do for so long because they're your parents. It was that same kind of feeling. There's still something in him with this loyalty towards Doffy that he wishes that he can shake. And so he didn't get to fight at his strongest ability against Doffy, and I thought that was pretty cool.
I think we see that as a common theme in this arc of people hindering themselves by not seeing themselves as someone who can make the top. Like Blackbeard and Luffy are characters who are, we are going to be king of the pirates. So are a few other characters, but we see Caesar as someone who's like, yeah, I know I'm below Doffy, but I'm going to get it one up on him eventually. And Doffy, yeah, I know I'm below Kaido, but I'm going to get one up on him eventually. And Law, I know I'm below Doffy, but I'm going to get... And Luffy's like, I don't know I'm below anyone. I'm above all of you. No one can stop me. I'm Monkey D. fucking Luffy. Get out of the way.
Exactly. And it's also super funny because the first time I saw one of the fishies jump out on the bridge, my very first thought is, too bad Luffy's not here. He would hockey that bitch into being his friend. It's funny how you start to get to know your characters and you almost wish they could be in more than one line at a time. I loved seeing Robin laid on the ground like Gulliver. For those of you who don't know, I have a dog. I have Bellamy's sister, and her name is Lilliput Clementine. And Lilliput is because of the Lilliputians in Gulliver's Travel, and we just call her Lily. So seeing Robin all out there like Gulliver's Travel, I was like, oh, yes! It's my Lilliput, it's my Lilliputians. And so I was super, super stoked. Although I thought it was also kind of funny that they came out of her boobs. Did Luffy's hand always go that color when he, like, I remember it going black in the past, but am I wrong? Did he have like this kind of a black hand before, or is this new? Black to show the hockey? Yeah, I thought so. The picture though that they do in volume 72 in Dressrosa's Forgotten, which is such a good, okay, it was Fishman. Okay, thank you. That's what I was wondering, if it had only just been there. Is so good. The way that they have outlined the high points of Luffy's hands so you can almost look at his black hand.
Way better at the like black shine effect with the hockey.
Because it looks like you can see the skeleton through it. It's really cool. Love it.
Black hockey, I really don't like in the anime, but in the manga, it adds so much to the paneling because you can have these sections of black and it just makes the impact panels with a hockey infused punch stand out. In the anime, it feels kind of like, I don't know, like whatever. But in manga, it looks really good. I really like
in the book, it is so good.
Can we talk about the King Punch? I'm a King Punch believer. There are people who downplay the King Punch. I think the King Punch is as strong as they say it is. I think genuinely, you punch Kaido or Big Mom in the face with the King Punch and they are getting severely injured.
And yet it doesn't break down the barrier.
It was introduced just so that we could have confirmed, yes, these barriers can't be broken with brute force. You need a way to bypass them.
Can we just say,
punch through this.
Like it or lump it, the King Punch, it's got a little golden snitch to it.
That it's just like you win the fight if you get this off. However, it's so inconvenient with the warm-up time that if he didn't have like a squad there, it literally couldn't have done anything.
I just kept wondering, does his dumb ass just have to stand there? Can't he fight with swords or kick them or, I don't know, bite them? Maybe get himself some kind of... Is it really, you must stand still for all of this time for 1 hour? You can't bite someone or kick them or do anything else. You just have to stand there.
Big Mom, Shanks, Kaido, and Blackbeard aren't going to stand around letting this guy charge up. I'm saying if he got the punch off, what they need to do, this is how you win the series. Hey King, Mr. King, before we leave, how would you feel about punching this shell?
I would love that.
And before we leave this,
You know what you do?
this island, can you punch this shell for me really hard?
You farm this bitch's punches. You get
You're
a
just
whole
gonna
bunch
punch
of these.
impact dials.
Yeah, and you just keep him for like 24 to 72 hours, and you just make him punch shells for you for that length of time.
Okay.
And then he's
okay.
like, I just
Seriously?
need to sleep.
Seriously, how hard does this go? How hard does this scene go? If there's a scene where Usopp's getting his fucking ass kicked, there's nothing he can do to win. He's entirely outclassed by who he's up against, and he just reaches in and he goes to pull something out, and we flash back, and he's like, "Hey, before you leave, can you do me a favor?" And the king's like, and then it just cuts back to present day, and Usopp does yell royal impact or like king impact. How hard does that go?
Come on now. It would just be king packed.
How hard does this go, guys? Usopp's arm would break, but I think he'd beat whoever he's fighting.
Worth it.
If his arm is still attached, he's lucky. If he's alive, he's lucky.
Well, maybe it's Luffy who uses it.
Look, you put the king punch in a rejectile and everyone dies. That's a nuclear bomb. Don't put the king punch in a rejectile.
No. You could put it at the end of Luffy's fist, and he could do one of his big fist punches and then use it.
But impact dials hurt Luffy.
Yeah, it's the end of the fight move.
Okay.
I love Violet. I was a little bit broken when I found out that Violet was the king's daughter.
So Oda actually had to hold back. I think it's mentioned in SBS eventually, but like the implication with her being Doffy's girl is as dark as it feels like it is, and Oda was basically warned not to make it explicit.
Not to make it explicit that she was what?
Coerced into being Doffy's girl to stay alive.
Oh, bro.
Yes. It's as fucked up as it seems like it would be.
And how old was she then? 14?
I do not know.
She's 18. So what was she then?
No, I thought she was in her 20s. Oh no. Doffy's the worst. She's 28 now.
So it was 10 years ago?
Still so bad, but at least it's
still so bad. People love to think of people who are 18 as being adults, and as a person who teaches 18-year-olds.
Oh, it's also like it is completely coercive and forced. So
exactly. So it's a difference of power structure. You've also got a person who's just gone through trauma caused by the other person. Also, 18-year-olds are babies in older bodies. They're just babies. Well, just think about the squishies that are here. People need to be loved. There's still little people inside. 18-year-olds are babies, just babies.
It's not good. It's a bad situation.
I loved the winner in the first go around. I love that we found out that even the king punch can't get through the shield.
Yep. If Oda makes a barrier fruit, it is a barrier fruit. Nothing is getting past this.
I'm sorry. Lucy's cool. Lucy's cool as fuck.
What
that
a great
beard.
character.
Oh, I can't find it. I don't know where it is, but there is an actual area when he has his mask on and he's standing in silhouette where he literally looks like Sniper King. Like, I found a picture of Sniper King in silhouette and a picture of Lucy wearing his mask in silhouette, and I swear to God, Oda just was like, I'm just gonna be funny and draw him in here and make him freaking identical. Anyways, Lucy is awesome. So awesome, in fact, I was kind of sad that Lucy isn't a real character. I love this Lucy guy. He's amazing. The other thing that was so fascinating is when you think about how Caesar had all this power, all these people watching him, put himself on TV, needed everyone to see how powerful he was, is capable of building these things with poisons that are just unbelievable. And then it's a really good reminder from Oda how if your power isn't legitimate and doesn't come from a real place, how easy it is to lose that power. What is Caesar now? He's just a piece of shit object that's being passed around like a piece of material. He's like a weapon.
Luffy is locked in a coliseum and is more powerful than Caesar because his crew follows his will when he's not there.
Exactly. And this guy, what is he doing? He's doing nothing. He's just being passed from person to person. His humanhood, his agency is irrelevant. All he is a tool. And I hate him, so I'm happy about it. It's a really good reminder that if your power doesn't come from a place of legitimacy, it is the easiest thing to lose fake power.
Now, can we bring up quickly, now that we're in the Colosseum and we're talking about who has real power without being present, how well we are implying the power of the Blackbeard pirates here?
Oh, so there's the same thing that you and I were talking and you pointed out, just the same way that Luffy is inside the Colosseum and he's fighting and he's trying to get his brother's devil fruit and his crew is out there taking care of business. Meanwhile, same thing with Blackbeard. He's got a member of his crew Burgess just fighting inside of the ring. Blackbeard doesn't need to know exactly where he is or what he's doing. He's following his own agenda, and that's not a problem for Blackbeard. Blackbeard's not out here like, oh no, where are you? I need you. Blackbeard is like, yeah, fucking A, go do your own thing.
And same with Kuzan saving his friends in the Marines. Just
exactly.
Yeah, get back by dinner.
Because that's what it looks like when you don't have to worry about your legitimacy of your rule. You don't need to have people, you don't need to micromanage people's business and figure out exactly what they're doing, exactly when they're doing it. That's an authoritarian rule that means that you have to be at the center of all decisions and all work. Whereas in this one, they're just like, yeah, go do you. Not looking for that kind of leadership. And I trust you.
Someone was saying that Bellamy as a character helped them grow as a person because they were in a similar place where they were clinging to something that was bad for them, and it helped them grow as a person to see what it did to Bellamy, that it was hollowing him out.
I just love that, because not a lot of people are able to grow, admit where they're wrong, or to ask themselves how they can change in a more positive way. When I hear about people who say to themselves, I don't like the direction I'm going and what I'm holding on to, and change themselves, I just want to high five them for a decade. Squishies, when you do that, that shows like the highest level of intelligence and the most beautiful level of self-care. Good for you. You know what is so good? Is watching Frankie and his weird little tractor knee things, just tractor kneeing and drinking a drink.
Like, any reason for this, Frank, or we're just doing it. Okay.
Just driving his ass through the town with a little soldier on his shoulders, having some cola and having a chat about the past and what the town is like. And I was like, I unreasonably liked it. I stopped and looked at it.
Frankie's kind of the opposite of Luffy in the way that he cares so much about your backstory.
He so does. And it's so great for him, because that's what I was talking about, Frankie and his empathy. Have you ever met people, like, there's so few of them in today's world, it's just ridiculous. But you know when you find them. You meet a person who looks you in your eye when you talk, and you can tell that they're not having to work at listening to you, and they don't want to be anywhere else, and they're just really enjoying your company, and they are happy to be in the conversation they're having with you, and they're not wondering about what's next. And when you meet that person and you feel so seen, that is addictive, to be with a person who's like that. And that's who Frankie is as a character. He's that person, the person that when he is spending time with you, he is here with you and nothing else matters. And he's just happy to be having this conversation with you, happy to be in this moment, and so excited to find out about who you were. I had a friend in my life at one time who I had that kind of great friendship with, and he was one of those types of people who, when you were with him, there wasn't anyone else or anywhere else that he would want to be. And it is the most friended I think I've ever felt in my life.
That is absolutely how Frankie comes across as a character. Just truly cares about listening to people and what they care about. And I think, like, obviously Luffy cares about people, but in the way that he only cares about what you want and need, not why. He doesn't care about what's happened to you. He cares about whose fault it is that you are feeling what you're feeling and what he can do to help. But Frankie really just does want to listen. He wants to hear about your life.
Luffy ADD listens to you. Like, he hears you and he catches the highlights and he knows what's important, and he'll hear the injustices within what you see, but more importantly, he'll feel your injustices and your needs, and he's more intuitive in that way, that he can feel it, but he's not sitting there and looking you in the eye. He's ADDing his way over to the next thing, but he'll fight his ass off for you. He feels the pain that you're in, and he's like, if you're gonna fight for you, I'm gonna fight for you.
Makes me feel like if Frankie developed observation haki, that it would register somehow in the way of having an understanding of people's pain.
Oh shit, yeah. Can you imagine a Frankie with observation haki?
Well, granted, I think he's not the kind of person likely to get observation. He's more of an armament guy as far as what he's likely to unlock.
But wouldn't it be better if he did get observation haki? Because I think that would be a real letdown of his character, since he's the type of character who observes people so closely and so deeply. And he already has the strength that he built into himself, so I don't feel like he would need to have
maybe because his physical power comes from machines. It would just be observation haki of feeling someone's pain.
But not only the pain, maybe hopefully we could be nice to Frankie and let him feel the joy too, because wasn't it amazing to get to see Hero and then have that little cricket statue down underground with our little guy?
Yeah, it's the Mont Blanc Nolan statue, yeah, because he went there too and he was the hero, yeah.
Oh, it was so good, Nolan. I was so happy to see you there. And then to hear the amazing lies that our Usopp told, because it's been a while since Usopp spinned a yarn. So to have Usopp being next to the hero.
No, I'm a descendant of Nolan for sure. But this, he has to be a descendant of Nolan now, right?
Yep. That's what I
Like,
kept saying.
Like, it's going to be true. He's going to turn out to be a descendant of Nolan. What other possibility is there?
It was funny that you said it because when it happened, I was laughing and I was like, oh, that's funny. He hasn't lied in a while. And then I was like, oh, I got to check back and think about all the lies that he said to see what other things are going to come true still. And then I was like, oh, shit. Is he going to be a descendant of Nolan?
It feels like he has to be. He has inherited his will, that's true, but he says he's a descendant. And that usually it's one for one.
Usually it comes along in some way. Can you even believe how freaking hilarious the dwarfs are when they're like, you're bad and evil. No, I'm good. Oh, well, she said she's good. She's good. With Robin underground. Everything's fine. Don't worry about it. Put down your weapons. All is well and right with the world. I also love how they're like talking about how they've captured one of their people. And they're like, yeah, they've captured her and she's there. Oh, she must be really nice and important. No, she's an asshole, but she's one of us. We got to get her. A lot of people I don't think like, is it Giola or Giola?
Giola? Anyone who watched the anime hates Giola because they extended her bit and it became so annoying. They basically gave her a second form after she was defeated and made a filler episode out of it. So people who watch the anime hate Giola a lot. People who read the manga are like, yeah, she's just like one of the side bosses. It's fine.
Really? I like her. I like her character a lot. I also like that he troped out that, yeah, she does get rid of Nami's boobs and turn Nami into a child, which was disconcerting. But I do like that he brought out the old pony of somebody being like, who just called me a mermaid princess? What? It was so great bringing out that old trope again of somebody keeps saying like, oh, I can feel my soul shaking. Who said that I was a goddess? Nobody. It's right back to our gorgeous boy. I like her though. I went and read it in the colored version, but when I was reading this, I realized that I was missing out on some nuances with her color, and I'm glad I did. What beautiful panels those were done in color. I kind of almost felt sad that the first time people see them, they don't see that in color, because those colorized versions of her art and the ocean, incredible. It was absolutely beautiful.
I love Brooke taking advantage of the fact that his bow for his violin is a sword to trick her. It's so smart.
Yeah. And to start playing into her fears and into her shortcomings right away, and then be like, I agree with you, and your stuff is incredible and it's amazing. And oh, you know what would make this even nicer is a piece of music composed to your greatness. If you can play with people's insecurities like that, like Brooke did, you'll get what you need out of it. It was quite impressive.
Brooke keeps a level head better than any Straw Hat.
He does. And why isn't anyone else learning how to do his cut?
Because it's hard to learn certain things and they'd rather focus on their skills, I think.
It needs to be learned.
Okay, but Zoro benefit from subtlety. Like, the man's dense.
Who are you talking about? Zoro? That's not who I want to learn how to do it. Robin.
Yeah, but Robin doesn't know how to use a sword, so it might be hard for her to learn. Like...
I don't want it with a sword. I want it with a dagger.
Okay, that'd be pretty metal.
I think Robin with a dagger, first of all, you imagine a garter up high on Robin's leg with a dagger on it and tell me that's not one of the hottest things you've ever thought of.
No, it's a look. It's a look. You said it and I was like, okay, yeah, we got an aesthetic. There's an aesthetic argument immediately.
Yeah, 100%. So Robin with a dagger, first of all, fully yes. And then you get Robin with a dagger who learns to have Brooke's skill, and all of a sudden you're just missing an arm and she puts her arm on you and then she attacks you with her arm that's your arm. Oh, yeah.
I'm just saying, if Robin's going to learn any martial arts, it should be the 6 paths, because finger pistol is busted.
I would agree. Hey, but wouldn't it be funny if Robin took someone's arm off, then she put her arm on them, and then she did the sister and brother thing, why are you hitting yourself, and started punching them in the face?
Look, it would be funny. If Robin wanted to be like a fucking pugilist boxer and liked fighting, her fruit is crazy.
Yeah. It is crazy. Robin could be an amazing boxer. How many arms can you box with Robin?
But she's more of a grappler. The only thing she really does in combat is grappling.
No, I thought it was grappling, and then you made me watch the G8 and she snapped everybody's necks.
That's the type of...
I didn't know we were neck snapping because I'd never heard things out loud, and all of a sudden necks were popping off everywhere we went.
I mean, she's been doing that the whole time.
It was a lot for me. I'm not gonna lie. Finding out that the anime had Robin popping necks off was a bit of a shock.
They just added a noise to the move she was doing in the manga.
Yeah, but in the manga, it made it look like she was just kind of doing one of those sleeper holds. Sleeper hold. The time for sleep is now. kind of like, chloroform.
Kind of like chloroform.
With her arms. But then it turned out she was like, snap. No. I love Bellamy in this entire arc. But you know what I really love?
So much pathos to him.
I really love my beautiful loofers on top of his little bowl.
Ushi!
He's so moo. I don't know if anyone knows this here, so I just want to put it out there. Guys, I've tried to keep this on the DL because
it's not known.
It's not known and it's a big deal to me, but I really like animals.
What?
So when Lucy, who is Lucy, is on top of the little bowl and he is like riding it around, Moosey and Lucy, and then they go running into the guy and sticks his amazing little horns into his ankles. It's so good. Oh, Moosey.
Someone also said that they love Robin's outfit, and we agree that this is like this Robin outfit kills. This is my favorite.
This is peak Robin.
That flapper hat is so good.
With her aviator glasses? Shut up. Say less. Too hot for her own good.
The cowboy hat's great. I know you all love it. It's great. Have y'all seen Robin in the flapper hat and the mini dress? It's crazy. It's so good.
You know what? It's funny. I guess normal humans, I don't know a lot of normal humans, but people who claim to be normal might really like to spend a lot of time talking about all the fights that take place inside of the ring. And the fights are great. And I love the fights and I love the moves. But there's only so much you can talk about. Like, okay, yeah, and then he punched him. Then there was more punching.
Like I think we can talk about the winners. The winners are interesting.
I really, though, do want to talk about the grandpa when Luffy gives him his big punch and pops his head back out so that he's able to get his treasure later on. Not that it matters, since right now he's turning into a toy soon from all accounts and purposes, but in the future, if he gets out of there.
If he stops being a toy at some point. City of Dressrosa should consider itself lucky that Bardo was there, because without a barrier fruit there, the King Punch was about to annihilate a city block.
Yeah, I love how the person there was like, the only reason that we're all not destroyed is because the barrier was there, and everybody is like, oh, this guy is improper and blah, 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 and urinating off into the thing.
You are alive by this man's good grace.
If it wasn't for him, you would be toast-a-rooney.
Oh, apparently the attack that Brook does is a special attack from the nation he served in the military of, and he renamed it when he became a pirate, but it is from his military days.
I like that. I love that Bardo was in Logetown. I thought that was absolutely amazing.
It also means he's one of the only pirates from the East Blue we've met.
Yeah. And it also means that he understands how big it was when Luffy stood up there and laughed in the same way as Roger did.
He's a Logetown citizen. He's a civilian in Logetown, so he knew the rumors and the myth.
Exactly. And so he actually understood how impactful that was and why it mattered. And I thought that was pretty cool. That then from that moment on, he decides that he loves Luffy and has all this respect for Luffy, and then starts to follow the Straw Hats for this whole time. Like, come on, that was amazing.
How do you feel about the theory I immediately thought up, that it turns out I wasn't alone in, and everyone else did the week we first saw him here, that our friend Jesus Burgess, that sack is full of different types of fruit to murder devil fruit users and hope that you have the right fruit on hand?
Yeah, when you told me that idea, I was like, first of all, genius. And second of all, wow, that's evil.
The Blackbeard pirates have been hunting fruit, and if they needed Blackbeard to do it, then Burgess wouldn't be on his own. Like, he'd be with Blackbeard.
When you gave me that theory, I was like, yeah, that actually makes sense. You carry around, but you would have to replenish it all the time, because if you're talking about fruit, I think it also matters like how good the fruit is. You couldn't just have like a rotten fucking mango and then be like, what? Why is this not working?
Like, when it's soil, the soil doesn't turn into devil fruit. There's a point of rot where it's no longer a fruit.
Exactly. And so you would have to be constantly replenishing and hoping that you were in an area where you could make new good fruit. So it's a difficult thing to do, and it would require constant work, but still smart, just challenging.
I do love also that you were pointing out that makes the Blackbeard special, the thing that they're doing, their big strategy, a bag of fruits. All right, everybody, get out there, grab your bag of fruits, kill some devil fruit users, and get to it.
A bag of fruits. You know who scares me is Shark Slicer Bastille. Every time I see him, the Vice Admiral, I'm like, you scare me. You remind me of, what's that dude's name with the mask? Well, it kind of looks like the Halloween guy, because it almost looks like a hockey mask. But,
a little bit.
Not fan at all. And I also like that we put Usopp in a place that has all these big plants. I hope he can replenish Maybe he can do some hybrid things. And here's what it made me ask a question about hockey and I know that people are like, why does Mama want to talk about hockey again? Mama's obsessed with hockey, that's why. I started to wonder if you could layer the effects of different types of hockey. If Sanji could put his hockey onto something and then Luffy could put his hockey over it, so that first maybe it has like the ability to be shielded and then release something underneath. You know what I mean? So the first layer of hockey shields it from anything getting at it, and then it goes through people, and then once it goes in, it releases the observation or the other type of hockey underneath. And I also started to wonder if they can actually, instead of just being layered separately, if they can be mixed. I just have thoughts and wonders about that.
You do have a lot of thoughts about hockey. The Straw Hats have fruits growing on their boat. It's actually been a popular theory in the community for a while that at some point a devil fruit user would die and it was reincarnated. I can tell you, this is where I caught up, right? Was chapter 700, the beginning of Dressrosa. Everyone was convinced at the beginning of Dressrosa that we were going to, right after Punk Hazard, have Nami discover Monet's fruit on her tangerine tree. That was a really popular theory.
That'd be cool.
The problem is of course, that they were on the far side of the island, and like we have proof was fruit all over Punk Hazard. So like very, very, very likely it just reincarnated in one of the fruits sitting around on Punk Hazard. Like more than likely.
But isn't it a cool idea? This idea that like the Straw Hats could be somewhere, and because also Usopp has different things that are growing. Because
I think it's going to come up. I don't think we would have been carrying around fruit trees for this long of a series and then introduce the idea of it reincarnating as fruit without a reason.
And Usopp is also carrying fruit and plant life now, because everybody was so freaked out about Usopp running out of seeds and shit that he had to tell everybody what was happening in SBS when he was just going to use it in an arc. And they were like, yeah, no, he has an area. He grows shit. Didn't you love the little guy's methods of travel and the foxes and Robin and Usopp getting to ride in on the foxes? So good. The whole thing is beautiful. Whenever we go down with our little guys, I'm always like, oh, yay, because they're way cuter and everything is bright and fun down there.
I'm 100% convinced that a fruit is going to reincarnate on Nami's trees. Like, it just feels like too good of a thing not to happen when we've been carrying around fruit trees with us for this long.
Well, honestly, it's Chekhov's gun. You can't be sailing around the ocean with fruit trees knowing that when somebody dies, it reincarnates into a fruit, and you're putting yourself in the center of how many different battles and how many people dying, and you never have a fruit turn into a devil fruit. That feels like bringing a gun onto stage and not using it. It's Chekhov's gun. It needs to happen. Come on.
I have looked it up, and the fruit that I am theorizing that I cannot yet theorize about looks a really fucking lot like an orange. The fruit that I think is going to reincarnate on the ship looks a lot like an orange looking at it in the manga right now.
Fascinating.
I can't explain why, because the reason I think so is in the current arc.
This person, Luffy dies and his fruit
absolutely
reincarnates on those trees. You are a bad kid.
Holy shit, if they do that at the end of the series, the Gum Gum fruit does look a little, it's round, but like, look, the fruit I'm looking at right now looks more like a tangerine than Luffy's, but if they did that, that would be so devastating. Holy fuck. If Luffy dies,
that would make us cry for 1,000 years.
Oh my god, that could be look, I'm certain he's gonna use it. I feel sure about it, but if he uses it like that, I'll be heartbroken.
Oh my god, they better not do that. No, Oda. No. You know, it was another moment when we're talking about leadership and stuff, something that I wanted to talk about by the way, I hate Cavendish.
You hate Cavendish? We hate cabbage, huh?
I hate him. I would like him more if he was a girl.
What? Men aren't allowed to be pretty and care about their looks? I'm sorry.
No, that's not why.
Kind of sexist.
No, it's not why. I just think a girl in that outfit would be like epic.
He's a femboy. Let him be a femboy.
No, he can be a femboy, but I would love to see a woman in that outfit.
It's kind of an outfit. It's kind of a fit. It's kind of a look.
Anyways, it's not because of the outfit. It's not because of the femme. It's not because of any of that. I just hate his personality. It's a shitty personality.
Look, he's just very sad that he's not popular anymore.
Yeah, exactly. That's a shitty way to be. Like, oh, I'm sorry that everyone doesn't love you. Sometimes you're not loved.
His backstory is so tragic. He used to be really popular, and now he's not.
Oh, my bad. I didn't know it was so tragic. Cavendish sucks. Then he sucks some more. So when we were talking earlier about leadership and the decisions to do different things and the trust that people have, the Straw Hats were going through a living hell out in the boat. And rather than caring about that, Law was just like, no, you need to get here. I'm not going to deal with your issues or even listen to them because I'm in bad issues. Whereas what Law should have found out is, oh, we're in no position to help you. We're art currently. Like, we as pictures can't come and save you. Then I wanted to juxtaposition that off to what happened with Luffy and Frankie. So Luffy is like, we can't get involved in that fight, Frankie, with the little guys, because we have all these different things going. We're trying to attack him in this way. We promised we would do this. And then they're like, well, A, we've been led astray. But more importantly, Luffy, these people have spent all of this time doing all this work so that they can fight against Doflamingo, who has absolutely decimated their people and has put them in a difficult position for hundreds of years. And they're fighting against this man now. And there's no way that I can leave them. And Luffy, as a real leader, stops and goes, okay, I trust you. Go ahead with that. And boom, they go off in that direction. And you know that Luffy will follow them and that Luffy has that pivoting ability, but he also listens to the people within his group, which is a very different type of leadership. And Luffy and Frankie knew that they could have that. And so they had a couple of really important moments here. And Frankie in this arc was used as a way of doing quick check-ins with Luffy's leadership so that we could be reminded of who Luffy was in his leadership and then juxtapose that against the other types of leaderships that we were seeing. The way that as poor Bellamy is coming to assassinate Luffy and is going through a struggle, that secondary person has been sent in to assassinate Bellamy and then take Luffy out. And you can just see like this incredible juxtaposition between being a full control freak who everybody has to worship and do exactly what you say, and then the type of leader who is like, we need to give space and time to each of the people within our group and remember that each one of them have their own ideas, needs, hopes, wishes, and values. Because there was no way with Frankie being the person that he is that he could ever leave them in a worse position than he met them or derail plans that they've been in. He's like, how can we call ourselves the good guys if we're going to do this thing that's going to create so much bad? And I just thought that it was an amazing check-in on Luffy's leadership. And then also a check-in on all of the different Straw Hats, because we got to see almost every one of the Straw Hats, well, sections of Straw Hats, take on the work of leadership.
I just want to touch on something that connects to that you mentioned last episode, because you mentioned that Chopper and Nami refused to move on, even though Luffy was telling them we need to stick to the plan, because they said, how can we call ourselves the good guy if we don't help these kids? Luffy at every point is saying, even if we have a plan, if my crew can't look themselves in the mirror with the actions I'm telling them to do, I won't be happy. They think they need to do something to be a good person. They are always allowed to do it. And we're seeing that.
Exactly.
Luffy's leadership, I think, isn't being tested. It's being exemplified because these decisions aren't hard for him. He makes the right decision easily every time, which is why this arc is about choosing your leader, not about being a leader.
Exactly. When, for instance, Big Mama's ship shows up and they're like, hey, Luffy, Big Mama's ship is here. What does Luffy say? Okay, well, I trust you to take care of that. Just get to the next place. And they're like, okay. He's not like, here's all the things you're going to do and here's what it's going to look like.
I need you to remember how big the Sunny is for a second. The Queen Mama Chanter is too big.
I just couldn't even. I had no idea. That thing is insane.
It's intimidating how big Big Mom's flagship is. Also, Luffy pissed her off enough that she sent the flagship after him.
And it's so pretty.
It dwarfs Brook's ship. It's Laboon big. It's so big. How big is it compared to Thriller Bark?
And pretty.
I love the Queen Mama Chanter. It's so over-designed and all over the place.
I love that.
Jolly Roger, by the way, is awful. It's way too over-designed, but
yeah, that was no good.
And it's singing. I love the Queen Mama Chanter here. It's so scary to have it show up. Like, oh, okay, cool.
Question I was going to ask about Dillinger is those horns are real. They're under the hat. They're not just part of the hat.
Those are Dillinger's horns.
I kind of like those horns. Those horns are good. But I'm really sad for this part. Oh, eek, there you are, Bellamy. Did you make the hit already? Oh, not yet. Dillinger, what do you want? Well, it figures that you'd screw up an assassination. Plus, you're Oasis Space, so I'm supposed to finish you off. Or so says young master. Oops, I wasn't supposed to say that part. You know what, Dillinger? I stand behind the statement I made earlier about the Don Quixote family. It's time to kill children.
What I love about Dillinger is that he sucks.
Okay, here's the thing. Mama, I know I'm a teacher. We shouldn't talk about it, but did you meet Dillinger? Dillinger! Okay, here's the place that I was looking for. I think I understand Traffy's plans. We bust the factory and leave Doflamingo intact so we can use him. But what happens to the people who are trying to overthrow Doflamingo today? Does it really suit us better to let Doflamingo win? I don't care what you say, Luffy. I'm gonna do this. There is a deep, deep darkness beneath this fun little country. This brave and tiny army stands bold and tall against a great shadowy enemy, and I can't abandon them to defeat. And then Sanji goes, let's turn back then. What? I mean, I knew this was coming, but still. Well, give him your worst, says Luffy. We'll be right there. Thanks, pal, says Frankie. That is such great leadership. That was a beautiful time.
What does your leader give you? What does the person you put faith in give you? Doflamingo betrays Bellamy. He only gives any care to the people in his tightest circle, and everyone else is entirely disposable, if not contempted. What does Luffy give Frankie? Everything. He gives him as much trust as he expects in return. He listens to Frankie say, I need to help them. And Luffy knows it disrupts their plan and makes things harder, but he needs his crew to get to do what they think is right. That's why
this was so cool, because he really used it as foil, because he put the whole thing with Dillinger and his horns right beside the thing with Luffy and Frankie talking about the darkness and the bravery of this little army. So it was the perfect thing to show us what it looked like when you actually paid attention to your people and care about them. And I was so grateful for that juxtaposition. God damn, Big Mama's ship is big. Like, what?
Big Mom makes such an impression. This is actually something I love about post-time skip era of One Piece. The emperors, specifically Big Mom and Blackbeard, have presence everywhere. They are their tendrils are everywhere.
Tendrils, that's what I was about to say.
Yeah. Kaido too, because we see Kaido's presence in that Dressrosa and Punk Hazard are factories for him. They are weapon manufacturing plants for him. Blackbeard, Big Mom, and Kaido are everywhere in presence. They are controlling the world in the second half of the Grand Line, and we can feel them even though they're not anywhere. The Devil Fruit Hunters of Blackbeard, the military force of Big Mom, and the weapons production of Kaido are all over here, except Shanks, who we don't really see. But Shanks' presence is always in like him himself. Like he himself stopped Kaido from coming to the war. He himself stopped the war.
Shanks is a puzzle to me. Like, I know I can't ask it, but I keep wondering, like, what the shit? Does he have an armada? Does he have other groups? Is it just the one little thing we see? Like, how are you as powerful as you are without more red hair, Shanks? Like, there's got to be more going on there. I don't know. And I love what happened when they get there with Caesar being like, holy shit, save me. You can't let Big Mama get her hands on me. Listen, between you and me, I built her out of some research funds, because he's now, once again, going to be a really good resource to trade with. Hey, you see how we mouthed you off? Well, we got Caesar. Could we just trade Caesar for all of this?
So Caesar has been working for Kaido, Big Mom, separately Doffy, his own weapons production, the world government. Caesar just is science for hire.
Yeah, exactly. And I like how they say, okay, we're going to split up. You've got this Big Mom problem. I trust you to deal with it. We've got this problem. What's the next island? Is it Zhao? Is that how we pronounce it?
I think Zoe was the most common one last time.
Zoe? Okay, well, we're going to take down Doflamingo. That should be easy. You're going to get rid of Big Mom. That should be easy, right? What is that going to take? 20, 30 minutes max? And we'll meet up in Zoe.
Yeah. Should we talk about the King Riku flashbacks? Yeah. What happened? I forget the order of all the flashbacks in this arc.
I'll give you the DL of it. He's seeping in his room, and somebody in a flamingo coat comes flippity flopping off to his windowsill and is like, here's the deal, broham. I'm the old royalty before we were moved into being dragons. I'm the one who used to rule here, my family line. I've decided to take it over. Dude's like, I don't think so, biatch. And he goes, yep, but you know what, king? I'll sell you this kingdom and you can keep it for 10 million berries. And then the king's like, do you think I have 10 million berries just sitting inside of my ass? And then Doflamingo is like, I don't really give two rats' tails. What you got? And then the king is like, well, I guess 10 billion berries are important, so I'm going to ask you to go and get money from everyone. And all the soldiers do, and you can't tell them why. And then the king comes on a TV and is like, I'm so sorry. I realize this quest is so unfair. You must doubt your very ears. I can just beg. And then he prostrates himself in front of them on TV, and everyone's like, don't do that. And then everyone is like, oh my God, he prostrated himself on TV in front of us. And then everyone's like, here you go, King of Kings. You're the killer. We love you. You're great. And then while he's being loved and he's great, then Doflamingo says, you know what? what power I have? Puppet master! And then he puppet masters the king to go about cutting people down and mutilating them and burning and killing all through the towns. And then everyone says to themselves, and the king is screaming, why are you doing this to us? And then he's like, ha 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 ha, I am Doffy, MFer. And then Doffy's family comes walking in behind him like, we are sick and ugly freaks. And then the king is like, no. And all the people are like, I can't believe you were doing this. And we loved you. And now they hate the king and they hate the king's whole family. You promised not to murder family. I'll follow your orders, says the baby. And then Doffy is like, yeah, okay, I really like your power. So I'm in, biatch. And then the king runs away and goes into hiding. And this poor little girl has to stand there being like, I'm so sad. That's Violet, just in case you're wondering.
Okay.
And then Violet becomes one of the family officers. And what's very sad about that is she has this ability to have sight where she can see through anything. And now everybody hates the king and everybody hates Rebecca, who's related to the king. Aww.
You just made me realize something that goes back to the political discussion we had earlier.
Okay, go ahead.
And this ties back into why he starts with an allegory to Shay. Hear me out on this.
Okay.
People who argue for anarchism as a system will often bring up that around the time of things going funky in Spain, there was an anarchist movement that was pretty successful, and all reports seem to indicate that the quality of life within the anarchist regions of Spain was really, really high, whereas the fascist regions were pretty bad. Like overall, not good, but there was this cult of personality around Franco, and people were loyal at the very least. He had control and power. And the argument that a lot of people who believe in militant revolutionary violence have is you don't actually offer a good society if you are incapable of protecting and preserving the goodness you offer. That is an argument that people who believe in violent revolution as a moral necessity tend to use. Anarchy isn't a form of government, you're right, but either way, a common argument that people who believe in revolution use when talking about the need of violence to protect is that if you can't protect the society you offer, you didn't offer it to begin with. And I think that represented really well here with King Riku. Juxtaposed to a Franco-esque figure, we have a figure who gave his people a peaceful and good life. Yeah, no, anarchism isn't the purge. Sorry, a lot of people hear anarchism and they think it's everybody going around doing whatever they want. The anarchistic regions of Spain were very peaceful. They were collaborative. It was people working together, communal living. Things were generally very good, but they couldn't protect it. They got steamrolled. They got entirely defeated. Like there was no chance of self-preservation of that society. And I think it's a really functional argument to say, if you don't have the military power to maintain your society, you didn't offer your society. And King Riku is in that position. And I think it's not a mistake that he's being juxtaposed to Don Quixote doflamingo, where objectively one of these men is evil and one is good, but the good one didn't actually manage to protect the quality of life he was offering. It was taken away and he couldn't stop it.
Yeah, that makes even more sense why he would use the whole piece on Shay in the beginning. It totally helps to tie in all those threads.
That's my read on it, and I think it makes a lot of sense to me with how I've seen political discourse around the subject. Now, granted, I haven't done enough studying into the anarchist movement in pre-fascist Spain myself. It's a lot more complicated than my summary. If you want to know about it, educate yourself. But I do think this is intentional. Like, if this was something I thought about ahead of time, I would have done research, but I just connected dots right now listening to you talk about the Riku flashback. I think this is intentional. I think that is meant to be Riku's failure, is that he's a good man who couldn't protect his own goodness.
I would absolutely agree with you. And I love that idea of a weakness being a good person with good ideas and the right hope for the future, but you just didn't cover your ass enough to be protected. I'm in 731, people. Okay, we've got that little lad who I don't like. And this is when I liked our new dude a lot, even though he's bitey, and I know it's a Japanese joke. Don't come at me. I already know that. But I liked our bitey little dude a lot. I thought he was okay, but I thought he was freaking amazing when he protected poor little Bellamy, and then he said, protect the house of the choice, da, 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 da. Just you wait and see. You won't be leaving Dressrosa alive. Mark my words. Okay, go on, you snot-nosed punk. Diamante, are those orders true? Did Doflamingo really command you to do this? To kill me? If I win the tournament, you'll make me an officer of the family. So show me what you can do. I'm expecting big things. And then he says, gonna take you to the medical room. Don't get involved with me. I've lost my reason to live. Besides, what purpose would you have in saving me? We only stood in the ring a few minutes ago. And he said, exactly. 2 men in the ring, trading fists. That makes us comrades in battle. I may be rotten, but I don't abandon a pal in need. Who does that sound like? Who does that sound like?
Luffy has inspired this man
so much. He will not abandon a friend. We fought together, now we're friends, and I will not abandon a friend. Once you're my friend, and now I will protect you no matter what. As soon as I heard that, I was like, oh my god, you have been deeply Luffyized, and I am here for it. So right away, that was freaking amazing. Then we find out about the whole beneath the country, unbeknownst to all, is an enormous subterranean world. But what does SOP mean? There's a trading port for carrying out black market, da-da-da-da-da. So the fact that it's taking place beneath the country and is fully economically controlled only by Doflamingo and his family was another one of those times when I was like, that's exactly what we were talking about within the leadership, that we had trouble with Caesar, because Caesar did an overextension of power and started to stretch his resources too thin, but he also started to have people start to believe that he had too much power and he had too much control over the economy, just like Franco. And Franco had an economic policy that was self-protectionism and fed his family and his regime and implemented economic liberalization only for him and his people. And that reminds me of Doffy, who's taking all the money in for himself and has a hidden black market running underneath his own country and is managing to pull everything together under there without the majority of the people knowing. On top of that, he gets himself an incredible workforce by turning them into toys. They still act, think, and behave as if they were human, but the people that they belong to no longer know that they're there. Just a different type of slavery. So Doffy has a way of making people slaves because now they're not remembered. They have nowhere to go. They're not allowed to be in the same home as people who are human. So Doffy found a way of creating open air slaves. He doesn't have to buy them. He doesn't have to bind them. He doesn't have to find a place to put them. But in order to make sure that he can't have any conversations with anyone so that they can prove that they're slaves or that they used to be people, is by making it so they're not allowed to hang out with them. They're not allowed to have true and real relationships or be alone in a home. So he creates up barriers that keeps people from knowing who they were. And plus, these people aren't telling the people that they used to love, because honestly, if those people don't remember you, they're not going to keep you in your life. If you start saying things like that, they won't believe it and they'll just think you're crazy. So he minds himself some slaves that he doesn't have to feed, clothe, or care for, which is genius, awful genius, but awful. Then every toy in Dressrosa will instantly return to human form. We find out if that stupid jerk dies, yay!
Well, or goes unconscious.
This is why I think, and hear me out, that we should kill children, like Sugar, who's not a real child anyways. So just kill her.
That's not even a child. Yeah, that's an adult young woman. It's so fucking funny to be an ageless being who's 22. That's so hilarious.
So stupid. And then I like how Luffy is running out so that he can get to where he needs to be. And then he sees, hey, Rooster Guy. I just love that Luffy and I both just give people whatever damn name we want. I'm so glad I ran into you. Maybe I will call him Rooster Guy, Luffy. You know what? And then he just passes out. I kept it together, Bartolomeo. I wasn't going to waste your chance to talk to the king of the pirates. And he has to turn his back in order to have the conversation. And he finds all about from Bellamy what's occurred. There ain't an exit to this Coliseum. He did your wounds get worse somehow? When a combatant walks in, he'll never get out. It's pointless. Luffy, of course, will get out. Don't be ridiculous. And I love that he's given all the help and taught how to get out by our boy that can't even look at him. But then when we find out, he's like, just leave. I was always going to win that thing for you for a keepsake. The great ace, like I knew you'd want. Huh? You'd give it to me? I would give it. It belongs to you. Man, your accent is intense, says Luffy. Somebody said that this dude has a Boston accent. Is that true?
Huh, that makes some sense.
And all of that was amazing. And you're like, this is incredible. I'm so excited. All of these things are so excited. And then what happens? Oh, thank you for asking. We've got this chick, Asilla, wreaking havoc together with Rebecca, and everything is good. I'm going to make sure you reach the final. I know. And you're like, oh, that's amazing. And then boom. Who's that guy think he is talking to Mr. Luffy like that? Just look how angry he is. And then we look at Luffy's face and his eyeballs bulge out of his head and snot runs out of his nose and he starts blubbering and blubbering. And when he gets out and he's in his ridiculous little costume, well, it seems the Navy has mistaken us for more toys, but only barely thanks to your creepy choice in animals. Are they not the bee's knees, especially this koi fish? And all we see is Luffy crying. I'll save Drabby and Mingo. I'm not worried about them. And he just can't stop crying. And I'm like, oh my God. I already knew. I knew. And I could not even believe it. And I was like, oh my God. And then we see the Revolutionary Army Assistant Fishman Karate Master Koala. Fishman Karate Master. So she is put in the time with the fishmen and learn how to do their karate. Koala.
She learned martial arts from fishmen.
Shut the freaking front door and you're like, and then boom. If you had been there when it happened, would anything have changed? You can't know that. No one can. Let me know when we have details about the underground. For now, I'll simply state that Ace's fruit is mine. It's up to us to continue living out his will. I didn't think he was alive. I thought he had died. I really, really thought he was dead. And we see the 3 cups sitting in front of Ace's freaking grave. And we're like, yeah, baby, Sabo's in town. I could not be more excited. People, Sabo is in town. I get myself another gold star for that. It's Sabo, don't even. And to find out that our girl went and learned fishman karate.
It's great. I love that Koala's become a fishman karate master, especially carrying on Fisher Tiger's legacy of like wanting peace between humans and fishmen.
Does she get a star? Drock basically told, dude,
you don't get a star for Sabo's alive. I literally did tell her Sabo's alive because I couldn't keep a straight face at it. And I said, you don't get a star for Sabo being alive. Mama Drock gets a star for Sabo being in the Revolutionaries, which was her prediction, which I did not give. I did not share that.
I said everyone should have known that Sabo was alive, but I said I think Sabo is a member of the Revolution.
I think that one's one of the easier things to guess. I don't think that's like particularly tough, but like, you know, it still is a prediction. Yeah, but you get a star.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Where's our boy?
Where's Bellamy?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Did you do that?
He's been here the whole time.
You're a goofy goober. That's delight. I'm super proud of you. You're killing this shit.
Is it time?
It's long past time. You know what, YouTube? Here we are. We're nearing the end of the video, and I know you've liked it because you're nearing the end of the video now. So I'm not sure what it is about people pressing like on the videos and how they reserve them like some kind of precious thing, but I'm going to tell you a secret right now. When you press like, all that happens is Drock feels happy and I feel happy.
Yo, you know what? I'm going to step in the plug for a second, guys. These get a lot more views than we have subs, and it's like, you know, you're watching every week. You
clearly like it.
Why not give us a sub? Why not help us out? Why not help bump us up in the old algorithm?
Why don't you say to YouTube, hey YouTube, bump these biatches up.
I'll make a policy that when I call out commenters, I say don't harass them, and absolutely never harass this person. But someone commented, you guys will never get 20,000 subs, let alone 50.
Did somebody say that?
Don't you like proving people wrong? I love proving people wrong.
Somebody said that?
Somebody did say that.
People, I don't usually press this. Don't let this person be right. What a rude, mean thing to say. Yeah, so subscribe, press the like, and then if you want, come and join us in the Discord. Nobody says weird, nasty things. It's just a nice place to hang out. Don't get all weird about it. And then I go in there and I say weird things mostly. I mostly say weird things, I'm going to be honest. And then why don't you Patreon up? If you want a Patreon and join the Patreon and be a Patreon, all you do is press the little button and be one. And then there's a Patreon chat that I didn't even know existed. And then one day I noticed it and I jumped in and I was like, hey guys. And they were like, what the hell, man? So I'm there now. Second, YouTube, because I like to do both. Hey YouTube, press like, come on, subscribe. Why not? Just do it. There's squishies in life and there's plunkies. There's a clunky you've got to beat. We have a P.O. Box. It's P.O. Box 28078, Victoria, RPO, West Shore, BC, Canada, V9B 6K8.
Should we do our closing segments for Dressrosa Part 1?
Yeah, any new fruit that I would want. That's seeing fruit? What was that? Glare fruit. Yes, you know what? I am moving the glare fruit up the scale.
The top 5 is changing. What is our top 5 devil fruits now?
Now it's going to be the dudes. You know what the problem is? Glare fruit now is my number 1.
Crazy. I do not want that power at all.
I like to know things. I like to see through things. Like, it was made for me. Number 2 for me is going to be, I'm still going to put my second is Luffy's. I'm still going to put Gum Gum. And then it was Robin.
Yep.
And then it is going to be now, Slip Sloop is right out of there now. It can just bite my bum. I've decided I really want to move up to number 4. Oh, the barrier fruit. I didn't even think about that.
Barrier is really good. It's a really good fruit.
It's a wildly good fruit. I'm going to put Barrier ahead of Robin. Thanks, guys. And then I'm going to go number 3 is Barrier and number 4 is Robin's fruit. And then the Phoenix fruit is going to be my number 5 because remember, I freaking love me a Phoenix fruit.
Phoenix is good. We've seen more fruits, so before I had to hold back and keep secrets, definitely Law, definitely Robin, number 2. Number 3, Mystery, Surprise, Secret. We haven't seen it yet. Ooh, so spooky. 4 is the door. The door fruit is so good.
It is so good.
I would love a door fruit. Phoenix number 5. Phoenix is great. Should we move on to top 5? Oh, your least favorite character of the arc.
Yeah. You know what's really hard about this one?
What's hard about this?
I hate Doffy, but he's not my least favorite character because he's a great bad guy. He's way up there. And I hate that about me because it's just good writing. And so I keep him. It's gonna be that bitch. Sugar. I hate her.
It's that bitch Sugar.
Yeah. As I famously said, it's time to kill that kid. And so I hate her. And she is the worst person in this arc. She's taking people and turning them into slave labor for her shitty family. Okay, then top 5 people.
Top 5 favorite characters are the MVPs, the most valuable pirates. Who do we have?
First of all, we have Luffy's tier list of Luffy. He's just an A. He's doing his own thing. He's hanging out. It's good stuff. It's good Luffyism. He's kind of a side quest right now.
Because of the themes about this arc, he's a static character. He is a stationary thing.
It's supposed to be. It's good.
Exactly, because this is about who you choose, not what a leader chooses. We're from the perspective of the crew instead of Luffy emotionally. And that's so neat. It's such an inversion.
Love it. You know who is number 1 in the hot sun?
Who's that?
It's Frankie.
Hell yes. Frankie's feeling super this week.
Frankie did a super job, and he was key and pivotal in a bunch of those moments with Luffy where we were finding out just how much independence and just how much codependence in a good way the Straw Hats have on each other. And Frankie just nailed it. And I was just thinking of Frankie doing his little driving around town again. And I just loved Frankie. He gave me so many moments that I was like 10 out of 10. High five me, Frankie. I'm in love with you. You are a great dude. He is an ultimate dude. Number 5 is really going to upset me.
Okay.
It's Doffy.
What? The thing is he terrible? Yes. Yeah. Is he the single most compelling villain an arc has had?
Yes.
He's Crocodile on steroids.
Yeah, I hate it for me. But honestly, when you look at the work that Oda put into him, he's the embodiment of all the unauthentic pieces of power. He is showing the history of 3 major people who sucked, the history that he brings to this piece, the openings that he has, the manipulation of the people, the intertwinement of the story and Doffy, and the intertwinement of the world and the way that I look at One Piece. Honestly, if I was being fair, he would be number 1 because he changed the game the biggest, but he can kiss my ass, so he's number 5.
He doesn't deserve that spot.
Yeah, I mean, he's on the list, but I can't put him at number 1.
His intimidation, he's lived up to the hype it had been built up with for 600 chapters.
Yeah, exactly. Even though I hate him, Doffy is number 5. Frankie is number 1. Number 3.
Okay.
My thinking sounds. What do you think? Number 2,
Bartolomeo. Yeah, that's fair. He's great. He's such a funny dude.
You had me at obsessive love for the Straw Hats, Bardo, honestly. I did not like you at first, but I also liked you when you were laying on the edge and you were like looking at everyone and everyone was like, oh, he's just sitting there. I was like, I'm not really sure how I feel about him. And then he took a piss off the edge and I was like, no, I like him. Pretty sad that's what it took, but that's all it took.
It's so funny. He's just a fucking troll and I love it.
Luffy senpai! Number 4, straight out the door, is Usopp. pulling them out of a real bad position, bringing his lies back into town, standing up to what he needed to do, even though it nearly killed him and he did not want to. I would put Usopp with Robin, but I think that Usopp did a little more.
All right.
I don't think I'd put them together. It's just Usopp.
Fair. Good job, Usopp.
Yeah, and I love me a Robin, but no, it's just not there for me. I'm sorry.
Look, if it was a drip list, it's Robin versus Doffy. That's the only contenders in the drip list.
Robin was so hot this round. Like Robin was hot. And number 3 is Sanji.
You know, before he takes an early exit from the arc, Sanji leaves us with holding off doflamingo so everyone can survive.
Exactly. Not to mention all the stuff that he did with Violet and just remembering Violet looking into his heart. Not to mention all that, and how even though he's in love with Violet and he just wants to be with Violet, as soon as he hears that his crew is in trouble and Nami is out in the ocean alone, he just flies out and starts attacking freaking Doflamingo. Come on.
Yeah, the big bad, the strongest enemy the Straw Hats have yet faced, if you don't count Kuma, because he's not really an enemy. The strongest enemy we faced, and Sanji's like, I'll take him on. You do not touch my crew.
Exactly. That's wild. And if you think about it, what was he doing just before that? Who was he fighting just before that? All of the Doflamingo family. He's like, well, just let me have a nicer little light fight now. Nope. There are some honorable mentions. Law had a real hard time here. This was a really, really difficult time for Law. He's had some struggles, and I have some hopes for Law in the future, but he's busy with the struggles. And then another honorable mention to our brand new Admiral.
Yeah.
And his blind justice. I really liked his character. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does in the future. So yeah, those are my honorable mentions.
All right. I want to make a prediction about who you're going to make number 1 next week, because I think I know already.
Oh, are you now?
I need you to promise me that for the next 5 seconds after I count down, you are going to not have your earbud in. You ready?
Okay, goodbye.
Predictions that you can't be affected. Rosinante.
It's visually appealing to move around so much and get to see so many distinct areas and so many interesting areas. It's made it way more fun for me. It's one of the reasons I like this arc so much. The next reason is I really like tiny people, and I really enjoyed the fight in the Colosseum.
The choreography is a lot of fun.
It is. But you know what I liked most in this arc so far?
What was that?
Bardo.
Bardo's great.
No, I don't know if he's that great, but it's what I've liked the most so far. I really love somebody fanboying over my Straw Hats. Like, it turns out that I'm like,
people were saying earlier that he's kind of meant to be a fan surrogate, that he represents us in the story.
I really like that idea. I like that he gave us teeth then. I think that Oda having the idea to be like, you know what? I need to represent all my fans and the people who are in this and what they would feel like if they got to meet Luffy and the Straw Hats in real life. I think that's a really neat idea. I dreamed that I was on the Straw Hats last night.
That's fun.
It was wild. They were real life, but weird, and we hung out and we had adventures. I'm gonna tell you right now, if you're a person who doesn't remember their dreams or get to have dreams, boy, do I feel sorry for you, because my head at night is like a full-time movie, just doing whatever movie and I want to do, unless I have a nightmare, and then it's way too vivid and awful.
Should we say goodbye to everybody? You guys are amazing. This has been such a great experience. I'm having an absolute blast.
Thank you so much, Squishies. That was very kind of you.
This felt like the best it ever gets, which is where the conversations ahead of time are this back and forth, where I'm feeling like there's so much being added to the story. You've helped me see so much depth in it and connect it to so many things in the prior arcs.
That makes me feel really glad, because I know you already loved it.
I'm so excited to be in Dressrosa. Yes, the next stopping point is 767.
I am so excited. Hey, can I just put out there that you made some nice titties on this kid?
Yeah, he's got buff titties.
I just have one tiny question about them.
Huh? Yeah.
Where's his nipples?
They're like on the underside of the titty.
Okay, I'll allow it. I just like down there.
Yeah.
It would just make me sad for him if he was like a Ken doll on the upper half, you know? The pee is not enough pee.
You let me do my thing, okay?
Are you trying to say that he has prostate issues?
You let me do my thing.
Prostate issues. The problem with prostate issues is that you're prostrated. His pissing needs hockey.
Look, we'll get there. Fine. We'll give it. Oh, I don't love putting the shine on it, but you know what? We should.
Shine on the pee. Shine on the pee. Oh, that's beautiful. You know what I really like about that? I can tell that he's peeing now. Loving the highlights in this. Love that you went a little peach, a little citrine.
Oh, I'm just doing stuff. There was no thought anymore. There's no time for thought.
It's gold. It's absolutely gold.
Everybody, thank you for being here. And until next time, it's been lovely talking to you.
Squish on, squishies.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. That was fun.